All right. Let's see, can we reload this? Yeah, I don't see it.
It's live. I see it on my side.
I do.
Yeah.
Because it kind of bugs me when I'm out of focus.
I can here. Oh, it's classic content brought to you.
Yes, quality content. And of course, this thing is always 10 seconds behind. My computer's slow as
I
fuck.
just pasted the link in the chat.
Dude, I don't need that. What am I supposed to do with this link?
Matt wants to see it, man. Like you're on. You're participating. This is for all the live. That's for the live viewers, dude. There's 3 people on this. There's 3 million people on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You like my bookshelf? I just moved this here. At all the books I've read.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, you look like Ty Lopez.
You gotta frame it though. You know that, right? Like you need to shift it so that all you see is the bookshelf.
Like this?
Yeah, but you gotta zoom it in a little bit more, or you gotta move back a little bit.
Well, my desk is over here, so.
Well.
Oh man. Fucking tired.
Hey, I recognize that chair. That's the lawn chair.
Yes, it is. But anyway, whatever. Quality is not up to what I want it to be, but I'm just gonna live with it. Zoom back just a little bit if I could. Yeah, that's the zoom out. Okay.
Wing it.
All right. Anyway, we're just gonna get started. Fuck it. All right. So, all right. So the topic for today is about universal basic income. For those of you that have been following the presidential debate, it's been a lot of talk about it, especially with Andrew Yang. That was like this entire gang. This whole Yang gang was all over that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of jump into, obviously, the philosophical kind of issues that people run into when they start talking about universal basic income. So I could go like 20,000 different directions with this. I could talk about, everybody doing that whole debate with socialism and how UBI is going to help with the whole socialist agenda or, communist agenda or whatever. And how it kind of conflicts with capitalism, and how I've talked about before, how capitalism and individual policies, policies that were focused on individual rights is really kind of the backbone of the philosophical foundation of our country, how we kind of identify as that. But, I can go over, some other things like that in the future. But what I really wanted to kind of get down to is answering one question, is that we have automation coming in. We have, things progressively becoming a lot more less laborious, as you'd say. But we have a tendency to force ourselves into work. And looking back at some of these statistics, back in like the 1800s, I think it was like the 1870s, 1860s, 50% of our workforce was working in farms. And now it's around 2%. And so that statistic always kind of replays in my mind, and always thinking like, why is it that we haven't figured out a way to where we're just not always working so damn much and we could just give, some type of substance to people so that they can, be free to do what they want to do. But besides that, we actually went and we created an entirely new system called service economy and the information economy and, knowledge workers and all these sorts of things so that we can keep people working. To say, like Alan Watts says, we believe as good Protestants that the devil finds work for idle hands to do. That was like the old school kind of mentality that we had, is that we can't be lazy, you know? If you are lazy and you don't do work, then you don't deserve food. You don't deserve, you know, these materialistic things. But the whole point of the machinery, the whole point of technology is so that we don't have to do that labor. So it seems like we're living in a constant state where we're frustrated with ourselves with technological growth and work as we need it so that we can survive. So it's a weird, very weird kind of juxtaposition here. And to kind of like, you know, inflate this a little bit more, there's this idea about money being some tangible asset somewhere in the world. And to kind of illustrate this, I want to go through just a quick little like thought experiment. Is that money is like a measure of actual tangible wealth out there in the world, and we could be a little bit, you know, loose with this term tangible. I mean, we can see films and stuff like that. It's not necessarily tangible, but they are a good our product. That is the actual wealth that we have, and money is the measure of that. But the divide here with this little thought experiment is that you can't really pick up any other type of measurement off the ground. You can pick up like, you know, a dollar bill, and you can say that's real, but we can't pick up like an inch. When we pick up like a ruler and we say, oh, this measurement right here, this is the measure, but we can't say like, oh, these are like, you know, that's an actual like thing. It's like, well, the actual thing is a piece of wood, a piece of metal with markings on it. That is what the ruler is. But money, somehow in our mind, it has some transcendent quality to where that dollar, that number in our bank account is an actual thing, but it's not. It's a reference to an abstract concept, just like all other measurements are. So just as you can't pick up a pound, you can't pick up a dollar. And it sounds so kind of weird to our minds because we've been taught that like money is a real thing and you need to go and work for it, when really it's just an abstract thing. And what you're really trying to work for is material things, you know, a house, food, maybe some luxuries and whatnot. So we just have this weird kind of strange divide. So I guess getting back to, you know, what is the one thing that'll help all of this or make it unnecessary? And people are kind of coming to the point where they're saying, okay, yes, universal basic income would kind of solve that kind of thing. And when I first heard about it, I thought it was kind of like, yeah, okay, it seems like an oversimplification of it. And I think that there's probably, you know, more things to it that we would have to, you know, put in if we were actually going to make something like that feasible. But I think that it's leaning towards the right kind of direction, because we need to give people the abstract measurement in order for them to pay for the machines to do their work. Otherwise, we're just going to trying to create work for ourselves in order to pay for things. Um, if I can remember correctly, Alan Watts, I think, has the best, you know, talks about this. If you really want further study on that, I think his explanations are just very well put. And he says it quite cleanly that we have to get paid for the work done on our behalf by machinery and technology. And he says that money in itself is a technology that is designed in order to save labor. Instead of you having to, you know, raise chickens and hold chickens and have this kind of material wealth, and you have all that kind of stuff, and somebody else doesn't want chickens, and you know, the whole barber kind of thing. So that type of technology is in order for us to save labor. And it's actually backfiring on us because of this psychological and philosophical notion that we have in our heads. So I think that that is really the whole keystone of the entire thing, the entire problem that we're having, is that people have this superstition that money is a tangible thing out there in the world that we must earn. And, you know, that's just, I feel like that is like the big piece that we needed to tackle. So I think that, you know, like he says, the best minds in propaganda and media and all those kinds of things need to try to get a message across about what money actually is. So I think that would be more of our solution rather than just implementing UBI. It would be getting across the message of what money actually is. Therefore, everybody can actually be in a consensus over what the truth of the matter is. And so we can actually get something like that in place, because it's going to take more people involved, and we're going to have to put ideas together, put a whole bunch of stuff together, not just having one sweeping kind of general idea of how to solve a complex issue. I think that's how it's going to be. And I don't know what all the pieces are. I don't think that any one person has the entire scope and magnitude of the problem and a solution for that. So I think that that idea needs to spread first. Then we can actually move forward and create the solution, something similar to like UBI or something like that. So that's pretty much all of it. I'm gonna look at my notes, see if I skipped over anything. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, we got the bipolar kind of issue with, Republicans and Democrats, and we have that kind of fight or whatever. So we're gonna have to be very cognizant of that whole polarization. And it's gonna want to try to pull towards one side, obviously Democratic, but we have to see that it's more of a meta level philosophical kind of issue. So that would be something else. So that's my thing. So I guess we're gonna open it up for debate now.
Yeah. Were you surprised that the Republican Party was the first party to pull the trigger on UBI? That's a sarcastic comment. Slightly sarcastic.
I guess I'm not like that much of a historian on like what the Republicans have tried to do in the past. I mean,
Yeah,
I remember they were both trying to pass a bill in the past about like actually having a universal basic income, but they had a disagreement about the amount that was going to be head out to them, and so then gridlock happened and then it never actually passed. But I never really heard about it actually being a spearhead by the Republican Party, unless you were just joking about that.
No, I don't think I've gotten my $1,200 check yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So Matt, do you think you could draw a simpler parallel for me to follow? Could you tell me exactly how our grand misunderstanding of what money is leads to universal basic income?
Okay. So basically, we are thinking in a 17th century kind of mindset, and we're technologically in like the 21st century. That's kind of like, overarching kind of view. We believe that to get money, you need to earn. And so when machines start doing the work that we don't have to, then all of a sudden we create more work. But this creates jobs that are completely unnecessary. Like there's a good book called Bullshit Jobs. I mean, it's just that. I mean, we kind of created all this kind of stuff because we decided that we needed to. So to kind of put it more simply, I mean, like I was saying before, it needs to be like, we need to understand what the heck wealth is, what the heck money is. And then all the other kind of problems, I think, will kind of waterfall and dissolve from that. And it's just this idea that money is a physical thing. Because when you keep doing that, you're going to keep running into the problem of, okay, but where is the money going to come from? It's like, well, where do inches come from? They're a number, they're a measure, like it's like, what are you talking about? So you can't even have like a conversation about how to solve that kind of problem when your underlying philosophical issues are just still not agreed upon, and they're just not consistent with what we actually deal with every day. So I don't know if that clarifies.
I've got a question that maybe is slightly related to that, but like when you say money's not a thing, like what pops into my head is like you get a lot of people talking about like especially with like Bitcoin and gold, like the store of value. and I don't actually, that's not how I conceptualize money. What I conceptualize money is really more the flow. And really what the invention of money did was to facilitate a faster trade of goods. So rather than having to haggle over what my boar's head versus your horse hoof is worth, we value it, and now we're on a common trading point, and so trade becomes quicker. And so really what it's facilitating is a faster flow, but there's no real intrinsic value. It's just what the value is, whatever we all agree is, that's what that thing's worth.
Yeah.
Is that how you, is like, I know
Yeah,
that's maybe
yeah.
not a
I
complete
mean,
thought, but I'm wondering if you view it more like that,
yeah,
or
I
is there
mean,
something else that I'm missing?
yeah, no, totally. It's just that it's like there there seems to be a kind of disconnect when we actually put that into practice. When I say money is a system of information, which in itself has no value, it's pretty much what you said. Everybody seems to be in an agreement about that. And then if you see like a $5 bill on the ground and you pick it up and you say, "Oh, this is $5." It's like, well, that's a representation of an abstract concept that we call $5. That's not actually $5. That's when it starts to disconnect because it's a system of information, which information can be whatever, but it's referring to an abstract thing. So instead of a word having a relation to the physical world, as in like cat, the word cat refers to a physical cat. Money in itself refers to an abstract concept, which is not physical. So there's that disconnect when we actually try to put it into practice of like, oh, okay, well, money is not a real thing. These gold coins that I have, it's like, but that's actually, a thing. And it's
Actually, what
like,
I was
well, it
going to
has
ask,
wealth.
like,
Yeah. So
if money was gold backed, would you have the same, like, is it the same thing? Is it just nothing has value, or
uh,
is it?
I mean, this kind of gets to something I think is pretty funny. I think, Alan Watts, he actually has like a whole like story that he kind of constructed, kind of talking about that kind of thing where people think that like gold is wealth, is in terms of like using it as money. Um, which I've actually talked to the other Kevin, the cartoonist, about making a cartoon that would kind of talk about that kind of thing and making an analogy to it. But anyway, he started making this story up about how all these chief banks of the world wanted to just get rid of the expense and security measures of shipping consignments of gold from one bank to another because they had to go across land, across sea, all that kind of stuff. So they set up chief banks on a certain island in the middle of the Pacific. And so when one country owed gold to another country or money to another country,
They take it
they would just
across
have
the
to push
street.
it across the street. Yeah. So I don't know if you heard the story, but I'm just going to go through it
No,
anyway.
I haven't. It
Oh, okay.
sounds
All right. Yeah.
ridiculous.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's funny because it goes on. They set it up and they're all good. So they have all the gold in this island, and they have these deep elevator shafts down to keep secure the money. So it's down in these subterranean vaults. And it goes on for 5 years, and they say, oh, this is very good. So they start to have a convention up on the island, and everybody comes together from all the different countries, and they have this convention, they inspect the books, and everything is in order. Everything's good. Then the children ask, can we see the gold? And all the leaders are like, oh, of course you can see the gold. So they ask the managers and they say, well, it's terribly inconvenient at this time. Perhaps the children won't want to see the gold. It's just a rock. Who cares? They're like, oh, no, they'd be thrilled. Let's go down and see the gold. And so there were further delays and whatnot. And then it finally came out. They're like, a few years back, there was a catastrophic subterranean earthquake that had swallowed up all the gold, and all of it was lost. But as far as the bookkeeping was concerned, everything was in perfect order. And so it kind of goes into a little bit about how we think of using gold not in terms of its industrialness, in terms of like dentistry and technology and all that kind of stuff, as like a measure of wealth, when it's not really producing anything. All that money is just a ledger. It's just a thing of information that measures it. And so if it's backed by gold, you still run into the same kind of thing where you can just be lost in the abstraction from the actual physical thing. So if it was backed by gold, maybe it would solve some issues because realistically a subterranean earthquake would swallow up all the gold, but it wouldn't really solve the fundamental issue of getting people to understand that it's truly, strictly an abstract concept. I don't know if that helps, but
It does. I mean, what I take away is you feel like it's what it really is an accounting of reciprocity.
yeah, it's what you do on the community and what's the community owes you.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think you mentioned that the core issue, like the whole money concept issue, is a sub issue that, I mean, the main issue it seems is that we're creating useless jobs, right? Because of automation. Automation is becoming great, and so an inherent need to make money, we just make up jobs, right? That seems to be the core issue, right?
Yes and no. It's like it's giving us busy work so that we don't focus on the actual problem. So it's kind of like it's the cause to the effect, kind of, if that makes sense. It's like that the bigger problem is the philosophical problem, but the actual kind of like thing that's causing that problem is all the bullshit work that we provide for ourselves.
Interesting. And you say that like in the 1700s, like people were farming, right? So this
Yeah.
wasn't an issue.
1800s, yeah.
Bullshit positions, right?
Yeah. 50% of the workforce in America was working on farms. Yeah.
I I would say that we have as a ratio per capita the same number of bullshit jobs now as we did in the 1700s.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one.
No. As a premise, I don't know. I actually don't know. But would you disagree?
I would disagree. Yeah, I mean, because
Why
bullshit
would
jobs are defined as jobs that if you got rid of them, nothing would really change. I mean, look at us right now. Like most of us are at home working virtually, and we're getting paid money by the government, and things are running pretty. I wouldn't say pretty well because we're now really set up for that. I know that the food chain is kind of being, very much affected, and there's going to be some lasting effects. But I would say a majority of our problems are very much intellectual. They're very much abstract, and we're calling them a physical thing. Like the Great Depression, let's say, because of the mumbo jumbo in the economy, the banking, and all that kind of stuff, we were all miserable and poor, starving in the midst of plenty, as Alan Watts would put it. And that's just because of some abstract webbing construct that we created. But all the fields, the farms, the factories, all that kind of stuff would have been working perfectly if we just didn't have this boom and bust in our measurements of what was actually going on. So to that regard, I think that there's just this huge disconnect over like we have all these jobs that we call jobs that don't really do much of anything. Because I don't really see it. You know what I mean? Like when I walk
Can you
around
give
and you
an
see people
example of
being
what, like, what's an example
there's
of one of
actually
these
some good
jobs you're talking
examples.
about?
Yeah, I guess I didn't want to get into too much of this because
I
examples,
don't
but
mean to nail you
there's
down,
It's an
but
incredibly
oh no
important
no no. I
premise.
mean
Your
no,
entire
it's
breakdown,
definitely
you can't justify this.
bullshit jobs. Because I remember there was like I forgot the way he described it. It was like there was goons. There was like
I
uh what was he calling it? Oh yeah, because there's like attorneys that were like there only because other attorneys or in other companies were there. And if we
So
had like
that's kind of
legislation,
where I
kind
was.
of
That's
fix
where
it
I
up.
was. I guess that was where my question was going to be. Like, I kind of wondering where you're going to lie on the income scale of what a bullshit job is. And the reality is, in my head, likely the bullshit jobs are actually at the higher end of the spectrum.
Yeah. So I mean, to create an economy, you have to create all sorts of products and things that people want to buy, and you have to manufacture demand for it. So if you were to, let's say, get rid of all marketing, like I talked about like last week, we just demolished it completely. Like no more marketing, nothing. What kind of businesses would still be around? I mean, if you think about it, it's only the ones that like we really actually intrinsically want as humans. It's like, okay, we want this, we want that, we want some food, whatever. But we're only going to really find things. I mean, this is kind of
Yeah.
theoretical. We're only going to really go for things that are going to serve really a higher need rather than more
Are
materialistic manufactured desires.
aren't the only
So,
businesses that would be able to that the only businesses that aren't that have no marketing function are essentially utilities. Everybody else, when there's a moment of competition, marketing becomes, how do I wiggle my way in and make myself look better or make my competitor look worse?
yeah, well, you could take it this way. Like, there's a lot of, I don't know, yoga places, let's say. It's like a higher kind of need kind of thing. They aren't really marketing themselves too much. There's a lot of those kind of higher needs things that are not marketed that much, but people
Yeah.
still do seek them out. So there's a lot of different cases where you could say like, okay, marketing would help them. It's like, yeah, definitely. But usually what's marketed right now is just like what Coca-Cola. It's like what good is that doing really
Yeah,
anyway?
I hear you. I
Uh,
guess on the marketing, I mean, this is on the marketing thing where I had a little bit of a different opinion, is like making your studio look like feng shui is marketing. Like, I understand like hey, you need paint on your store, but that choice is marketing in some respect.
yeah, and I guess when I say like if we abolished all marketing, I'm kind of talking about more hard marketing, like
Okay.
video ads and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I noticed that there is no like fine line of like what is marketing, what's not. It's like if there's a product placement inside of a movie, then like is that marketing? It's like yes, but what if it's done just accidentally? It's like, well, I don't know. It's like, you know. So yeah, there's not like a hard kind of put thing. I wish I had a list of like the types of bullshit jobs because the guy
That's okay.
very clearly
The
calls it out.
lawyer thing was great for me because I would
Yeah,
agree that lawyers are
well, because they're
um
just like if we had proper legislation, like proper like laws that kind of like got rid of a lot of this kind of gray area, then we wouldn't need it. And if we simplified the tax code, which nobody really wants to do because all these big corporations really benefit from it being a labyrinth of jargon and
yeah.
shit so that they have the right people on top, stuff like that. I mean, all the stuff with like, what is it? Like, I forget what you call it, but it's like transferring the profits of something where like you sell like a product, but you have to pay IP on that product. And like that money that you pay for the IP goes to like Bermuda and then that double Dutch Irish sandwich type thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And like only things that like big corporations can really take advantage of because they have that kind of abstract quality
Sure.
to them over their IP value. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's if we just cleaned up a lot of that, then all those jobs that we have to manage all that stuff, it would just go away, and then we could all just kind of focus on what we really want, which is higher needs products, in my opinion. That's what we would gravitate towards.
I feel like you never addressed my question. My question was, how do you know that there
But
are more bullshit jobs now than there were in the 1700s? Like, I buy the argument that there are bullshit jobs now, but I don't buy the argument quite that per capita there are more bullshit jobs now than there was in the 1700s.
well, okay. I mean, if you want to look at the statistic of like 50% of people were working in farms back in the 1800s. They were actually producing a thing that people needed and wanted.
And
Now,
more
a
people were
lot of
focused
people,
on lower needs jobs.
yeah, I mean,
When I say
now it's
lower
like,
needs, I mean like core needs.
well, it's manufactured wants. It's like I was talking about with the marketing video last time. It was like BMW markets to everybody, and so when they market to everybody, they want everybody to have a consensus over their product being in the higher echelon of value in the social economic chain, you'd say. So they need to do that kind of thing and change reality a little bit to show that, okay, this thing is actually valuable and everybody has that. Um, Getting back, I guess, to the bullshit jobs thing. I mean, it's like, I guess I have to read in a little bit more to kind of get into that. But by David Graeber, I know that he wrote another book that was pretty big. I forgot the other one. But, one of the surveys that he did was about asking people, like, did you feel like your job actually contributed to anything reasonable? And like there was a big percentage, I forgot like what percentage it was, like really high though. It was like 50, 60, 70% of people were like, yeah, I don't do anything at work. That was coming from them, like the actual people doing that work, where they felt like, yeah, I actually do bullshit. I actually do bullshit work. I have a bullshit job. And they feel terrible about it. Like they feel like they're just not doing fucking anything. Um,
And do we have similar polls from the 1700s that we could reference?
I don't think so. So I mean, it's not like apples and apples, but it's like green apples and red apples, I would say, because you have the actual hard numbers of
Looks like
people
a
actually doing laborious work versus people that are doing work, but then they say that they're just bullshitting around.
So, so the premise, the core evidence of your argument is that people's opinion of their own jobs is that it's bullshit.
Well, I mean, this was kind of another piece of the UBI whole money thing. So
You think if you
kind of
polled, you
like
think
went
if you think
real deep into that.
if 2 months ago
Yeah,
you
it kind of
polled all
went
the
real.
essential workers, you think all of them would be like, absolutely, I'm essential.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
The
there's a lot of that kind of stuff where it's like, this is kind of like really far deep into like one piece of like the bigger topic of like, what is money and like UBI and like how
can
to solve that big complex issue. And I guess to that point, I am just one person that doesn't have all of the answers to all of these things, but I know what would help all these things is getting across that message of what is money.
can
And
I
I guess,
take a stab at connecting what is money to UBI in
sure,
maybe a more direct way?
sure, yeah.
Because I don't know, like Kevin, I don't know if you feel like that when it was glossed over a little
Well, he
bit.
really wants to get to the bullshit jobs thing, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So I love thinking about the concept of money as really an accounting of in my word, reciprocity. So
Yeah.
just a social worth. If you think of money in that concept, basically what UBI is saying, you deserve something simply for being born. You have worth for being born. There you go. So that's how I would connect those concepts.
Huh. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Didn't say if I agree with it or not, but that's how I would frame the argument.
I agree with it.
Agree?
Oh, what's up, Kevin? The Kevin and Matt show.
Surprise, motherfucker. Yeah. We
I
were
know. 3.5 hour late as usual. I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. We were just talking about bullshit jobs and UBI. So
What do you consider BS jobs?
We're really jobs that are produced because we have this idea that money is real and everybody should work for a wage. So we manufacture demand for certain things. So, I mean, you manufacture demand for, I don't know, Gucci
Lawyers.
bags and that kind of stuff. I mean, and lawyers. I mean, there's a lot of like, I guess to get into that again, you have these kind of loose laws about various different things, and so you have to have lawyers that will fight other lawyers and other companies. So you hire these people, and they're called goons, as bullshit jobs kind of defines it. And it's just this like whole explosion of different types of jobs because people need to work for a wage. So UBI would kind of give you that wage, so you don't have to do these bullshit jobs anymore. So I mean, that was just kind of like one aspect of like different things I was talking about, but
which is
yeah.
all alleged. All alleged. Can't back up anything.
I mean, if you want, okay, bullshit jobs types. I didn't pull it
Well,
up.
Kevin's got a point. I mean, that is something that would be subjective. I mean,
It is at the absolute level.
that's a
if you
bold
wanna get
statement,
that far.
though, saying lawyers have BS jobs.
No. So let me. So
I know. I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
It's like mandating insurance or or contractual requirements, or like, hey, you can't actually sell your home, you got to go through an escrow agent or something like that, and it's set up as a consumer protection. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
But
we go.
that puts in process. Hold on, man. That puts in
Yeah,
process flow, which requires people, and you might say that that's protection. So if you didn't put in contracts, maybe the way people deal with disputes is they bring out their guns, and that's how they deal with their disputes. So maybe we're putting in this social and cultural norm to take that out of the system.
So
but
cut off
like,
the
but we've built this other system, in its place. Then my head goes into, well, if that was the case, why does America pay so much for lawyers and have a high death rate? But anyway, sorry, Matt, didn't mean I was on a roll.
Oh no,
Shut up.
no. I just got super excited. So.
Yeah, go for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the types of jobs, he calls them flunkies. So people who serve to make their superiors feel important. Um, rest of receptionists, administrative assistants, door attendants. A lot of these people that can be a lot of automated systems can take care of that kind of stuff. Goons, like I was talking about, who oppose other goons hired by other corporations. So lobbyists, corporate lawyers, telemarketers. That's interesting. Public
telemarketers,
relations
yeah.
specialists. Duct tapers who temporarily fix problems that could be fixed permanently. So this kind of goes into some other kind of stuff like programmers repairing shoddy code, airline desk staff who calm passengers whose bags don't arrive, box ticketers, these and other types, who use paperwork or gestures as a proxy for action.
1700s. A lot
I
of
think
these,
this one's probably
all of these items you're listing existed in the 1700s too.
Yeah, so I mean, there's probably a proportion of it that is different now. I mean, I would say there's a lot more secretaries than there were back then as a proportion. I don't have the numbers to back that up.
But I'm arguing on a per capita basis, right? Because how many people were alive in the 1700s in comparison to now?
Well, I mean, if you look at it now, there's a lot more like what is the biggest sector of our employment? It's last time I checked, it was service. It was being a customer service representative or like a brand ambassador or whatnot. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of work that you don't really need. Like if you're really focused on like putting out a marketing campaign, let's just paint a picture here. Let's just focus on, fund, like the government wanted to fund higher needs projects. Like, okay, we're going to focus on, getting people enlightened or, whatever, just a utopian kind of ideal. And we're going to focus on funding higher needs rather than all these other kind of needs. Well, naturally, we're going to move more towards, what I think reinventing organizations and, new brave work or whatever, like a lot of different folks have been talking about it, where we kind of restructure our jobs to where they're more flexible and we take on roles rather than positions. And so we then actually find a place for us. So a lot of these corporations, they ditch like old job titles and they're like, okay, find work to do and then we can just make up a title for you and you can just kind of do that. Because we just don't want to pay, a secretary to kind of do this thing. There was an actual case of that. I forget the name of the company, but they actually were like, hey, we've been giving you this job to do paperwork. You are the, whatchamacallit, the box ticketer doing paperwork and gestures as the proxy for action. They recognize that. And so they're like, find a job, find something for you to do. And so they gave her kind of like a severance, if you want to put it that. And then they were like, okay, find something. And then she found her own work to do to actually improve the productivity of the company. So I think there's a lot of that kind of case. But in terms of like, if you want like a percentage of like the numbers then and the numbers now as a quantifiable type of thing, I don't know if there is, I don't know if, even if I had that kind of number, if it would be productive to actually kind of make the point that much. Because automation and all those kinds of things has really been, like the effect of it has really been kind of forgotten about, and kind of just like we don't really think, we think that that's like a future thing when really we're dealing with it right now. And we've created all these kind of jobs, and all the numbers and all those kind of things can be fudged a bit to kind of skew either way. Like I can cherry pick it and prove it really hard with numbers, but I didn't think that would really be helpful. Or I could cherry pick it and say, no, it's all bullshit that we're actually doing more work now than we ever have, when I just don't feel that that's the case. And really, I'm more about the philosophy rather than like the actual hard numbers. So if you really want me to get into the hard numbers, I can produce a report and give it to everybody and give it to you, and we can debate about that.
No, I don't want to read your report.
Yeah, I know. If anyone wants to read their reports, I mean, so I don't produce it.
The only reason why I harp on this point, first off, I mentioned this before to you. I'm a very simple man. I like to focus on like one concept at a time. That's the capacity of this brain. Unfortunately, I focus on one concept, and then once I understand it, I add on other concepts. I'm sorry, I can't process all this data at once, but I just the only reason why I bring up the whole 1700s versus now is because I just, you presented it as if it were fact, and I just feel like it could be highly debated, and it's almost as if it's your opinion, and I don't know. I just wanted to show you that potentially like the basis of a lot of what you're saying is based on your opinion, like it's like an extrapolation of what you think and what you perceive is going on. You know what I mean?
I got when it comes to this, if my company grows, this wouldn't be the first person I hire, but the person I am most excited to hire is a personal assistant. Like I can't wait. And someone to be like, hey, Matt, you've got a meeting. Oh, shit, you're right. Like, dude, I am so excited to hire that person.
Yes, they do serve some purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. So I guess to that point, with the advancements in technology, I feel like a lot of it could be kind of automated away. And to kind of get it real down to that point, I think that, Wing, the app that's coming from, what is it, Evo Nexus? Yeah, I think they launched it through Evo Nexus. They actually have at the bottom of like their first like homepage, I think one of their things was an actual executive assistant, and she said that Wing actually just does my job for me. Like honestly, I get this to just do my work for me. So I kind of look at that and I'm like, okay, like, all right. So a lot of this could be automated by a $10 per month program that does AI and other types of things.
I mean,
So, I mean,
like
but
if you
the
believe what they're selling, then it can be.
I mean, to an extent. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot that could be given up, and I think that a majority of it is because we had to manufacture demand for things that still require labor. That's kind of, I think, the driving force. The marketing is like the driving force of it. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. I mean, maybe I'll have to look at the numbers more, but from what I'm pulling, it's I don't know, because I've been looking at this for quite a while, and I didn't want to like get too, I guess, technical and pulling up everything. I kind of just wanted to like shoot it out there and kind of give an idea, because I feel like there's a lot of people who they want to do like more higher level kind of work where they can improve society, but they're still stuck trying to make a wage so that they can fund something else, you know, especially as entrepreneurs. I mean, it's like, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? It's like, not this, you know?
Yeah, but we,
People
dude,
would say
only,
that.
we can only have so many river raft guides.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
That's what I would do.
May
I
may
guess
I
I don't get
offer
that
up a
reference, but
query real quick? Unless you had another point you wanted to make.
Go, Kevin. Man, good, man.
go for it.
Okay. Well, I agree to an extent that I think some things can be, automated. I think that's just progress. You can't stop the world from progressing. It's inevitable.
Mhm.
But I think to the extent of what should be what jobs should be automated and what shouldn't be, I think you really have to consider who it's going to impact, especially that the workforce whose jobs are going to be eliminated because of that. And I think there's not one solution. And what I think what should happen, but I don't, at least from my limited knowledge, what I don't see happening is if an industry is going to go towards automation, that's going to put a lot of people out of work. I I would hope to see that there's what am I trying to say? The company that's doing it puts forth the resources to like maybe retrain those people to either work alongside it or do something, work in some other function of the company or the industry, whatever. Because it's like giving people the pink slip and kicking them out to the street isn't. I just think that's wrong because it's all computers can do it so much better. Slip, nothing we can do for you.
Well,
And then that person's left with a family to feed, no paycheck. I just think there are ways you can, and plus I think it's just smart to try and retain. You can retain skill and talent that because what am I trying to say is that I think a lot of people, they're not necessarily only skilled in one area because like they could have some competency that like you didn't know about, but you wouldn't know that because you shoved them out the door. And it's like, well, they could have been good over here. I think if you're a leader and you have to have that prescience to be like, okay, well, how can we maximize our resources instead of getting rid of potentially good people because computers can do it for us.
yeah. Have you watched or listened to the video that I sent you about Alan Watts?
I got through part of it. I know I still have to go back and do it. I've been swamped recently, but I have not forgotten it.
Yeah, because I feel like it. Because I mean, he kind of goes into like an explanation of like how all that kind of transpires. Um, it's like okay, technology will eliminate jobs. It's like yes, but it will always create more jobs. Like only programmers for the machines that people that took their jobs. And it's like then he goes and he's like yes, but that will create futile jobs. There will be jobs creating every kind of frippery and unnecessary contraption. And also one will have to beguile the public into needing and wanting these completely useless things that aren't even beautiful. That's a bunch of colorful language, but essentially it's like we have to first create the job, which could or could not be defined as a bullshit job, to create things that people don't even really want, and then you have to manufacture the demand for it, marketing, ergo, a bunch of luxury cars that go the same speed or whatever as regular cars, and then you could just continue the process. I mean, it's like it's just this never-ending kind of loop where we're like, okay, we're chasing our own tail. We're not letting the machines just do the work. So,
I mean, progress is always chasing your own tail. You invent something new and then you solve problems
yeah,
that creates.
Right.
I think it's important.
yeah.
Like
But I think that sorry.
when I think about technology, I think the really important thing to remember is that at the end of the day, people are making these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And if the management level, like, so the most likely job, the jobs that should be automated are the highest paid jobs because you get the biggest bang for your buck. Now, those people are also going to be the people making decisions on should we implement this technology or should we not. So clearly they're going to protect themselves, and so they're probably not going to get automated away. But if they make decisions that says, hey, we're going to automate away 50% of the workforce, good luck. Like, the people
Yeah.
they let go know who made that decision. Good luck. So, like, you know, you live in a society, like these things, it's a continuum. It's a continuum. It's you know, a circle. Like, it just, this stuff just doesn't happen. Yeah, we're making tech, but humans are making decisions on where do we implement that, how do we implement it, how far do we go. It's not like, you know, people, like, society is in control of that.
Yeah, that's something that's irreplaceable is human decision making. Like I don't know who said it, but it's like a case of like an automobile factory. Like all the ones like, you know, back in my home state of Michigan, like Ford, GM, they all replaced auto workers on the line with the robots. But it's like you can have all the robots building the car you want, but someone's got to be there to make sure the robots are working.
Yeah.
Because I don't think robot technology will ever be fully self sufficient or independent on its own power because you need that other hand to keep it going, and that's the irreplaceable human part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've developed self-replicating machines that are robust enough to actually kind of keep that going. I definitely agree with that. But as far as to your point, I mean, when we created machines to create all the automobiles and everybody was unemployed, we didn't give those people the money that they would have been earning from the, you know, from the job that they had in order to actually buy the cars that are being produced. That would have been, you know, if we kind of had a more smaller scale economy and we kind of just looked at it objectively, it would be like, yeah, that would just make sense. We pay people for the work done on their behalf by machinery. Makes sense to me. But in the bigger scheme of things, we say, no, like people have to earn their money. And that's kind of the thing that we have a problem with is that we have to earn it because it's a physical thing somewhere in the universe somehow.
Okay.
And so we can't let machines just do the work for us. We have to create more jobs. So now everybody has to be a programmer or to have a job. You see how this further escalates. And then we have
Sure.
to not create that. We have to create
I
more things.
No, I think it's I mean, certainly agree. I mean, I'm certainly a believer in the fact that you should get out what you put in. I think where the problem is the proportionality of it. And I will be the first to agree that there's definitely an unfair skew of proportionality in terms of rewards for labor. And I guess that falls into a question I had for other Matt when you said that the jobs that should be automated are the high paying ones. What positions were you thinking about? Because when you said high paying ones, I'm like, is he talking about CEOs or something? But I guess what do
No,
you
just from a,
define the?
I'm not saying should. It's just from a strict, like, numbers. If you're gonna get your biggest bang for your buck, like, that's,
But
you
I
know,
guess what high
like
paying positions would be automated?
management.
Yep.
I mean, it's an easy, like, management's hard. It's hard, but it's completely automatable. But those are also the people making the decisions. Do you think they're going to automate away their own jobs?
I guess
No.
that's kind of twofold because I mean, if you look at a lot of the stuff coming out with like the whole entrepreneurship kind of focus and more like what do you call it, like deep work and reinventing orgs and those kinds of books and that kind of research. There's a lot of positions that just don't need to exist. Like people can self-manage to a large degree. Now there might be some minute cases where we don't need that, but I think socio-economically and just culturally, we've kind of evolved to a point where we can just manage ourselves. We don't need managers to make all these decisions. And a lot of decisions can be made like on a smaller scale. But that's a huge, that kind of gets to the heart of what I'm trying to talk about is that that's a cultural shift and that's like a mindset shift. That's a paradigm shift that needs to happen in order for that to happen. It's not like oh, we need to retool our machines or we need to,
Okay.
create some physical thing. It's like this is a philosophical and cultural thing that needs to happen in order to make that kind of change. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing the whole process. We're going to automate, create more jobs, create more demand, and then we're going to automate that, create more jobs, create more demand, and it's just going to keep repeating, chasing our own tail.
Kevin,
Oh,
I
it
think.
sounds like go ahead. Sorry, I was going to say my question is, so I guess, which I agree with you that it is a cultural thing. So would you suggest then maybe reevaluating the purpose of what we call here a consumerist society? Because a lot of people will say, oh, it's the consumerist society we have where everyone is greedily filling their own desires by consuming product. That has to be rethought or confronted if that's going to change. Because I think it should. I do think consumerism is kind of a problem where it's like it's conditioned us to, you said that is a philosophical thing, but once again it's like that's something so deeply ingrained. How do you approach changing people's minds and hearts away from buy all things satisfy me from okay, maybe we don't need some of these products?
Yeah. I guess that's a bigger thing that I probably wouldn't be able to tackle. I mean, I did talk about, I think last time it was about marketing. But yeah, I mean, it's materialism and not just like consumerist materialism is really the fuel for all of this materialistic like paradigm that we have.
Okay.
You know, it's not a coincidence that, you know, we have this scientific view of the world as a physical external universe. That is a paradigm, which there are other paradigms that you could see the universe in, other than it being a physical, you know, universe. That is very much tied to, you know, buy this luxury car, you know, eat Cheetos, watch TV. You know, it's like when you see the world as a physical external manifestation, and that you're a separate thing, the mind-body problem, then what else is there to do other than entertain yourself, buy luxury goods, and procreate? You know.
Right.
I have a different cultural problem that's not just that's not consumerism, and it goes to kind of this. I think a lot of the discussions that I've been hearing, kind of around essential jobs right now, and people really talking about how, like, I don't know. I hear a lot of talk about essential jobs, and
Yeah.
what's frustrating me about that conversation is, the reality is those jobs were always they were nothing changed, nothing, nothing changed. It's just what people valued in the moment. And I feel like what goes on is a lot of short-term virtue signaling to try to make short-term gains, and not really looking, okay, what is a long-term perspective, on this. And if you had that long-term, I mean, I'm from manufacturing, so maybe like it's a little more core to me on the people they're talking about, and it's kind of the world I grew up in, so that may be a bit of this perspective, but it's frustrating to me that those short-term gains of talking about our military heroes and our doctor heroes and the heroes at the meatpacking plant, like that, those short-term gains, like in another 3 months, they're not going to mention that. In fact, they'll move on to whatever the next, topical issue that you can talk about short term to look good in front of your friends and kind of make gains that way. That's my
Oh, of course. I
culture
mean,
issue.
they barely mention the contributions of like police officers and firefighters, and it's like those guys are probably some of the most essential people that you can have, the public service workers. But no one gives two rips because it's taken for granted they get down to the root of it. It's like society cannot function without law and order and people being there to rescue people from fire-based disasters. Of course, I mean, you take that away, then people realize, oh crap, we really needed those guys. But now that it's because it's almost guaranteed that those people will be there for you and you're in trouble, it's just like, yeah, whatever. That's what they do.
Yeah.
No need to be reflective on that. And I'm not just saying that because my dad was a fireman. Well, I kind of am, but like, it's just common sense that those people just go unthanked. And the same thing is with a lot of medical staff. I mean, yeah, I've known quite a few like nurses in my time. It's just the way they talk about their days and how hard it is, and the fact that they still deal with patients who treat them awfully. And it's like, I get it, you're sick, you're in a bad mood, you just want to take it, but like, think about who you're
It's a person.
daced for, the people that are working to try and save your lousy life. You know what I'm saying? Like, give them a little more respect. But I get what you're saying, is that there's this tendency to, in times of crisis, to overzealously, praise. And without going into it too much, I think the whole, like, the essential and non-essential job thing, I think that's gonna fundamentally change the way we look at employment, and I don't think it's going to be in a good way, because my beef with that is, who are the federal and state governments to determine what job is essential and non-essential? I'll tell you, it's not, because that is not uh government's place to determine how the marketplace works by determining what jobs are essential and what's not. And that's a overstep, in my opinion.
So what would you think would be a good determiner for what is essential and what is not?
I think in certain instances, it's just the public, certain areas of the public, I think, have been able to determine how to go about things and how to do, like, because I think, like what you said earlier, society is moving more towards like a self-managing thing. I think that implies that people are becoming more conscious about I mean, not just like what's the right thing to do, but also maybe taking consideration of others, because it's like, I think it gets the impression that, like, oh, like the state governments, like, don't trust that the people will follow through on following well, it's like, which I don't think is entirely true, because it's like, even when somewhat left up to their own device, I mean, people have been honoring the things voluntarily, even before they started mandating like mass lockdowns. Oh, you can't go anywhere without a mask. I mean, at least in my impression, it's like people were being courteous of others. People were staying clean, washing hands, practicing the distance thing. And I guess it's that kind of common logic that's like, okay, well, how do we, keep things open and yet still observe these things, so that we keep as many people as not sick as possible, or not infect as many people as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was kind of a rambling answer. I hope some part of that made sense, but
yeah,
I think it's like those
that
elected leaders don't give people enough credit, if I can boil that down to the essence. So sorry, go ahead.
Yes, you feel as though government is an insufficient proxy for the public good, that it's just too corrupt by nature. Like, it just naturally doesn't really fit the need that we would have for some type of, force saying this is essential, this is not. Like, you just don't think that it would really fit that role, just flat out? Or is it that our government just isn't where you'd want it to be to fit that role?
Oh, you're asking me a question?
Yeah.
I think it just goes down to, it's a matter of proportionate. That's why we have checks and balances. I mean, even at the federal level, it's like you're watching these, branches of government are watching each other, so that no one oversteps their bounds, and that things happen within a reasonable, limit, I guess.
So do you?
One of the interesting things, Kevin, you may be able to, like, whatever. I'm not specifying which Kevin. You're from Michigan, so you may be able to. This may hit you a little bit more. One of the weird things about being in California is all the propositions that we have. And like in Michigan, I was like, yeah, they take, like, the people that were elected take care of that. And coming here, it's like, dude, what do you mean I got to vote on all this crap? Like, didn't we vote on people that handle that? Like, what is going on here? It's a very different concept of like democracy and like what the people do and what they don't. And like, I don't know.
Well, especially when I was still living there, it's like, Frick, I wasn't in my 20s. I was still like a high school teenager. You think I gave a rip about politics and voting? No, man. I was still trying to get through high school. I didn't care. I didn't care until I voted for the first time in 2016 because unfortunately I missed the boat in 2012. I was 1 year short. And then 2016 rolls around. I'm like, oh God, this is the first election I can vote. And I was always taught with like, don't just vote on looks or vote on personality, vote on issues, study the candidates, what their issues are. And I'm like, I should take that seriously. And then here we are. So I agree the same thing. You're kind of like taking a more intimate look at it and what your vote's actually counting for.
So I guess you're not a fan of the Electoral College?
No, I think it's necessary. Absolutely.
Okay. Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, those people who are like, "Oh, the Electoral College should be abolished. It doesn't work." It's like the Electoral College. If the Electoral College wasn't there, California, New York, and Texas would be deciding who gets elected.
No, man, that's one of the reasons why I like coming on this thing. I agree with about half of what you say, like strongly, and then the other half, I'm like, hey, I don't know, man. It's like it's good. I find myself like in both sides of the boat. You know.
You talking to me specifically, or
No,
Matt?
I'm talking to Matt.
Oh,
But
okay.
like he was like,
Okay.
so you don't believe in the electoral college? Like, to be honest, it's been interesting hearing both your, like, some of the times I think you're going to be someplace and then you're on the other side of an issue. I actually like this format of.
Should I just come out of the closet? I'm conservative. Oh God, it's so tragic. Oh my God, he's a Republican. Oh.
You're in Orange County, dude.
Kidding.
You're in
sorry.
good company.
I'm just I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, but man, I'm not gonna apologize for that. And
I guess
discourse like this is how it should be. It's sad that it's not, but this is an ideal model for discourse. What's happening right now? I mean,
yeah, definitely. I'm glad that I could be a good host for that. I hope I could, improve my skills on talking everything. Because
okay.
I feel like there's a couple of points where I'm just like, crap, I need to have, information on bullshit jobs. And I'm like, fuck, But yeah.
Well, if there's still enough time, because the thought occurred to me earlier, but it depends on whether you want to keep going. I know we're like 8 minutes past the when it should have ended. When you're talking about like BS jobs and like what can be automated and what isn't, my thought first went to like the service industry, specifically like fast food, because I think that's where I at least have seen the most progress in automation. Because like I went into a Taco Bell and it's like they put screens there now. Like you don't need to hire people to stand at the register. It's like you just put it in. McDonald's, I think there was one at
the food hasn't
McDonald's.
gotten better.
Well, you still, I think you still, stuff like that. I think you obviously need a human hand to cook food. I don't think you could trust a robot.
Dude, I don't know, man. They could put the money into food cooking technology versus getting rid of the people.
But I guess this is a question for Matt, host Matt. Do you what are your feelings regarding that? Do you feel like a fast or even places like Starbucks or whatever like that? Does that need a major overhaul? Those people, those can be automated, and we don't need that human workforce in an area like that anymore.
Okay, so with that, yes, you can automate a lot of stuff, like especially the tellers. The thing is, would we really want to? I think what we really want to do is really kind of fix like the food, like Matt was saying, like the food just has to get a lot better. And that creates an entirely different system. I think if you were serving more salads than you were serving, like hamburgers and cheeseburgers, because again, a lot of that demand is manufactured. I mean, you look on any fucking channel anywhere, and it's just selling me a Whopper. It's like I don't care about Carl's Jr. I don't care about Jack in the Box. I don't like all that kind of stuff is just such like dirty, grimy food. Sorry for anybody that works in any of these places, but it's like just the whole entire enterprise needs an entire overhaul, not just the workforce, like the entire damn thing, because it all feeds into itself in that regard. Because if you look at any kind of smaller shops, let's say like a health food store or something like that, there are people there, but they serve a really nice purpose, more so than the people at Jack in the Box. Not to discredit anybody doing their work, doing their job, or anything like that. It's just that when I go there, it's like, okay, this person knows all the vitamins. It's like I ask them like, hey, what about this? And they're like, oh, for the better of your health, for the better of just you as a person, this is what we're going to have. And that takes actual labor and intellect to actually do.
Mhm.
Whereas opposed to selling you a cheeseburger, it's pretty easy. It tastes good. Here you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Fuck all to your health. Fuck all to everything else. So it's a very different system. So the whole system needs an overhaul. And when you do that, I don't really know if we're going to get rid of all the human labor. I couldn't really tell you that. My probable answer is that it's probably going to be a little bit automated away. A lot of the teller stuff I think will be automated away, but some of the back end work I think won't be.
Yeah. Which I think is fair. I mean, the problem I think is that suddenly those kinds of jobs, people are trying to make that a career kind of thing or a way of life when they weren't designed initially. That's my beef with the whole move for $15 an hour. Look, I mean, right now, I mean, I work for I work for a freaking service chain. I mean, I'm already making like 11 stuff an hour right now. Cool. Do I want to be living on that when I'm 40? Excuse my French. Hell no, because it's not meant to support a family, and people are treating it like that when it's not designed to, and that's just more wasted money that I think you're right could be invested in areas that can, like you said, give quality food. Because it's like maybe instead of hiring all these cashiers at McDonald's to man the front store, if you replaced them all with computers, the money that you would normally be paying those cashiers could maybe go towards investing in better quality meat or potatoes or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So that the
but
food
I
will
guess
taste good and more people will be like, oh yeah, quality food. Now we'll go buy more.
yeah. I mean, I guess that kind of goes to another point. I mean, there's a lot of things that we kind of did automate within that kind of industry. I mean, there's, instead of people walking out and taking your order, now they just have a speaker system and they can talk to you while they're frying fries or whatever. So I mean, there is a little bit of that, but to get to that point, I mean, San Francisco, I know that there's a startup that actually kind of has an automated system where they cook a burger or something like that, which is really cool to look at. But um, looking at that, if you were to just kind of like, do a little bit of extrapolation, do a little bit of thinking on it, you can see that, okay, they're going to do that. They're going to take that money, that, profit margin that they kind of get off of, not hiring other people and put that towards better quality food. Then that technology is going to be given to all the other people. And then they're going to have a race to the bottom over who can get, a margin out of using this technology. And so the quality of the food is going to go down because they're going to want to have a bigger margin so that they can, sell more. So then you start to do that, then you start manufacturing demand for the product that is lower quality because you have to make up for that difference in quality, and so the cycle continues.
Do you
So
feel like that's
I don't know, that's
inevitable, or is there a way to stop
I
that?
feel like it's inevitable when we think that everybody has to work for a wage. And if you don't have to work for a wage, then you can actually put your money towards something that you actually really like instead of just being practical and being like, oh, I just got to feed myself. Jack in the Box, $2. Okay, there we go. I filled my stomach. It's like when you actually have like you open your eyes and you're like, oh, wait, I actually am thinking for a moment because I have the time, so I don't have to work. Oh, I'm gonna improve my health. It's like, okay, this is obviously detrimental. It's like, okay, okay, I'm gonna, get this better quality food because now I can afford it. Um, it,
Right.
it, it leads you to that kind of thing. Not to say that that's a one for one what will happen, but when you leave people open, it gives you the option to serve higher needs. Whereas we don't have that option when we have all these bullshit jobs and we're just filling our time with busy work.
Right. Yeah, I'm all for retaining employment that gives that type of higher satisfaction. I mean, because that's when you get into like, I know I'm going in psychological terms. Everyone knows the hierarchy of needs, that 5-level pyramid everyone talks about. So the self actualization and all that. I'm all for jobs with meaning. You're keeping those at least. Because yeah, it's like why get out of bed every morning and go to flip burgers that gives you no sense of personal purpose. Which, be honest, it doesn't. it those kinds of things don't really give you a sense of purpose, unlike something that I guess has a measurable positive contribution to society, like those working in tech, or hell, what a lot of people are doing here in the in the 1 million cup soci engine community, because it's like, everyone that's got a startup here, it's like, this is what we're doing, and it's going to impact society for the better. And it's like, well, naturally that just comes with a, I feel good about it, like I'm achieving a purpose. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah. And I guess like a lot of that stuff is very like people would say is very subjective. It's like, oh, what are higher needs? What is better? It's like that's what you define as better or something like that. So I guess I really like to kind of pull from sources that kind of look at cultural evolution. For example, it's like, well, obviously culture is moving this direction, and each stage, if you will, on any kind of model is going to backwards rationalize why their methodology is the best. It's like, why is science the best? Because scientifically it's been proven to improve our life. It's like, well, that's kind of a circular reasoning there. It's like, but it has its place, it has its purpose, it has improved our life, but you know it's like, okay, we have to have a broader picture of like, what can we really try to do. So I think that this is one of those cases where it's like, well, scientifically, rationally, logically, like all that kind of stuff. It's like it does make sense to automate things away, and then we're gonna, rationally, logically, we're gonna, create more jobs because people need to earn money. It's like, well, why don't we ask the real question? It's like, why are we creating these machines? So we don't have to do that work. So then we don't have to do that work. Okay, we're creating more work. It's like, why are we creating this work? Like, why can't we just like not do the work, and then we can actually do other things that we want to do. So I don't know. Like, I guess to your point, I guess a lot of people would love to learn about, I don't know, things to do with science so that we can create rocket ships instead of flip burgers. So I would like to live in that kind of society. I think a lot of other people would love to live in that kind of society. So I just don't know why it's not happening. Actually, I do know why it's not happening, but you know.
Because I just want better Netflix content.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've been marketed that, so that's why you want that manufactured demand.
Well, may not be happening for a while, man. Hollywood shut down until COVID's over.
Yeah, dude, where's your cartoon, man? Come on, we need something.
No one in Hollywood's working. Well, animators aren't necessarily impacted because everything's digitally based anyway. So everyone at Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, they're all working from home.
Mm-hmm.
Going out and shooting a film on the Warner Brothers lot exposed in public with like 50, 100 other people isn't viable. So, and that's where my sympathies lie with those guys. Because it's like, then you go back to, the essential, non-essential thing. It's like, people say like, well, entertainment, it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. But it's like, not to that person, man. They need a paycheck. They've gone how many months without a paycheck now? Because that type of career, unless you're at the top, has no job security. Then again, a lot of people who are out of, I mean, I was watching the news earlier. I forget the percentage that it's at now, but like I don't know how much of the country's filed on unemployment now. So I'm sure a lot of people would be defending their occupation as essential. So
yeah. Yeah.
And I
Not
mean, you're
easy.
talking about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's fine. That's all I want to say.
Well, I was going to go back to a point you mentioned earlier, where it's like it'd be this cultural shift or whatever, and it's like I think it's just now with COVID, it's going to shift even further now, and then I think a lot of these, like you said, philosophical, cultural discussions are going to be more prevalent even after this virus has been contained. Because I think even now everyone's like been asking those big questions. I mean, like what we're doing right now, like with the rise of Zoom and all this other stuff. I mean, that could fundamentally change the way like meetings are held. And it's like if this is cheaper, we could just move to this.
I
And that
know.
could go further.
I
Like
know if I gotta
who
wear
the hell do we need an office space anymore? We don't need a building. Everyone can just congregate online.
if I gotta wear a mask to a meeting, I'm staying home. Like I'm just not going, man. This is fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm really annoyed that I have to go, like I have to wear a mask everywhere I go, because I usually because I live kind of close to a major intersection, so there's a lot of shopping stuff here, and I walk all the way to the store and I'm like, I want my mask. I'm like, Jesus. So it's really, really annoying. But
Oh yeah,
anyway.
I got turned away from a Ralph's because I didn't have one. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
Now you're a Vaughn shopper, right?
Well, I just went to Stater Brothers after that because one,
Yeah,
they
there
were
you go,
closer.
man.
Two,
There you go,
they're not so
choice.
stickler. But I'm like, I have
That's
a
the
Ralph's Rewards card. I'm like,
That's
dang
the
it, I don't
market-
have a
that's the
rewards
market-
card for.
You know they give that to you for free.
Well, then I thought about that. I'm like, I'll just go get a Stater Brothers
Yeah,
Rewards card.
777. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now you got market choice, man. It's the market working. Some people will cater to
Yeah, what is it? I
the
think
pro-maskers. People will cater to the anti-maskers. It'll all work itself
what
out.
was it? I think it's really funny. I think it was the Vegas mayor, right? She was just like the news guy, I forgot his name, but he was just like, oh, I mean, how do you prepare? Like, how would you propose that these casinos protect their customers from COVID spread or whatever? She's like, well, that's for them to figure out. Like, I'm not going to be. And then she was saying like, oh, I mean, like whatever company isn't spreading the disease or whatever, then those are the ones that are going to do better, because capitalism is all about being adaptable and something rather or whatever. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing, going way off, but like it was just kind of like to that point. It's like, oh, that's for them to figure out. Like it's gonna be pro maskers, and out maskers or whatever.
Wow, like, peak leadership quality there.
Yeah.
Let them eat cake, like Marie Antoinette said.
Yeah.
Actually, she never said that. That's a folk legend, but yeah.
All right, guys, I gotta go. So I will.
You can close this off, yeah.
Well, I don't have to end it. You can keep talking, but I gotta go.
I feel bad for Kevin. We didn't like take up anything you wanted to ask, did we?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I really want to answer your question. I'll talk to you later though, because I really want to go down there.
I have.
All right, I'm jumping. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, I got to jump too. I got somewhere to go. But yeah, thanks for setting this up, man. Good time.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, see you guys.
Wait a minute. Are we allowed to still talk?
We can. Yeah.
No, I think Matt said. Matt? Is
Yeah,
Matt gone?
gone.
Oh my gosh. Do I have you to myself?
Yeah, I could see you.
Sorry, I just have a couple of comments.
Okay.
I have to go too, actually. So.
Okay.
Man, dude, I need to sit down with you one day. Just like block out a whole day, have like coffee and like some food, and just sit with you and talk.
Mm-hmm.
You are a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible. I was listening really carefully, really carefully to you talking there. I decided to be a little bit more quiet and just try to listen a little bit, see if I can figure out something. You know what I noticed? So I don't know if you know this about me, but I do actually read a lot of philosophy. Well, a little bit, not a shit ton. That stuff is real dense, like real core philosophy. Those papers that get published are real dense. Like I get through the first paragraph and I have to spend like half an hour trying to understand every sentence, right? So this stuff, that stuff is real dense.
Yeah,
But
a lot of jargon. Yeah.
but what I notice about the way you talk and express ideas, and it's probably that like I'm not like picking up on it quickly. It's probably it, but I'm noticing that there's a lot of like slippery slopes. Like you say things like, this is happening, so therefore this is happening. And so therefore this is their rationale behind why this is happening. And this will cause this. And so that's why this problem is happening. Like it's like almost like a lot of what you're saying is like a list of declarative statements. And each of the declarative statements, like I try to pick apart in my own mind. And it's like I can disagree with each step. So it's so hard for me to like raise my hand and say something when you've already gotten like 3 or 4 steps down and I disagree, or I could potentially disagree with each step. I think it is skepticism. I looked into that a little bit too. Maybe I'm just a massive skeptic or something. And I wish I could come up with an example.
You are.
I didn't write down even them because there were so many. But the most recent one, yeah, I can't even remember the most recent one. I'm sorry. But let me try to remember one. You were saying something about automation. I wanted to make a note about. I can't remember. But how about the first example that I made? So you were saying that 1700s there were not very many bullshit jobs. Now there are a lot of bullshit jobs, right? So that's a
That wasn't really my statement. More specifically, it was, where is it? Yeah, back in the 1800s, we had 50% of our workers were on farms, and now it's around 2%. So then we created a different kind of economy because with that kind of proportion, now we have the service economy, and with the service economy, obviously it can breed. It can be either helpful or not helpful. I mean, I didn't state that, but I guess there was quite a bit of implied with that. That with this service economy, it kind of just led to a lot of bullshit jobs.
so, there's an interesting one. So
Mhm.
we have a service economy. This led to a bunch of bullshit jobs. So two declarative statements, right?
So okay, I guess I see where you're trying to get at is that because there is a service industry, we created bullshit jobs. Is that what
Right.
you're trying to say?
So it's a small example. It's a small example when I'm picking apart because I
Because
remember.
that's not particularly what I'm trying to get at.
I
The
know.
service industry, like creating a different kind of economy, it let it open to the ground so that we can create bullshit jobs. I think that bullshit jobs kind of came about just because of all many different forces, of which I can't list all of them because I don't think any human can say all the different things. It's just that that's what happened. Like that's kind of a historical kind of perspective. So I wouldn't say that it's like, this led to that, led to this, led to that. It's like I'm kind of just giving you like a historical kind of perspective of like, kind of where we kind of led up now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that kind of helps you understand what I'm saying here, but
So you say that we have a service economy, right?
more or less, I mean, in America, we have a lot more service jobs. Uh, Bangladesh, Qatar, the United Emirates, freaking Madagascar, I don't really know. But I mean, as far as like the world's superpowers are concerned, I mean, you know, America, like I'm just generally talking about America usually. Yeah, there's a lot more service jobs. I mean, I can say that anecdotally. I can say that more empirically off of like just studies. Just off of numbers. I can go to like freaking Wolfram Alpha. I can just look it up right now.
So
What
okay.
percentage are in the service economy?
So I buy it. I buy it. So like a lot of people
Yeah.
are in the service industry, right?
Yeah.
And then so based on that, you're extrapolating that is somehow causing, or at least a factor in causing bullshit jobs.
Yeah. It's a factor. I mean, if we got rid of all the automated software out there or automated, machinery and stuff like that, we would have to go back to manual labor to till the soil, to do all that kind of stuff, to make food. we would have to hammer things in order to forge parts, you know. So yeah, we would have to go back to actually producing things with our own hands, and you know, and then we'd have to, you know, get into actually operating the machinery to do those kinds of things. And then we would create the software to automate the machinery to produce the parts and that kind of stuff, you know, up the line, so to speak.
So like doing like actually planting crops and like harvesting them by hand and doing using
Yeah,
hammers.
I mean,
That
that's,
is non-bullshit.
yeah, because I mean, let's say like, okay, to make things not bullshit, you have to produce like an actual kind of product thing, actual wealth, let's say. So if you manufacture demand, let's say for Louis Vuitton, Gucci bags, Prada, you know, whatever. It's like a thing that they do. All this kind of stuff is a manufactured demand. It's like, why is this bag better than this other bag? Because it has this label on it, which gives you the prestige. That's manufactured conspicuous consumption that has to be manufactured. That demand has to be manufactured, which is bullshit. So you have to create all this kind of stuff, which is, you know, brand strategy and marketing and all this kind of stuff, which doesn't necessarily need to be there. And actually, it's a detriment to the quality of our life because people feel bad when they
Wait,
don't
stop
buy
right there.
those
Stop right
sneakers.
there. So,
Yeah.
so there's an interesting point. So we have manufactured demand
Okay.
for some products, right?
Yes.
Because obviously there are some products that don't have manufactured demand. So some products have manufactured demands,
Mm-hmm.
and this will lead to a poor quality of life. I'm pretty sure that's what you just said, right?
It generally gravitates towards that, yeah. Because
So
when you
so
manufacture,
that's an excellent example right there. So
okay.
so statement number one, there are some items in existence that have manufactured demand. Because of this existence, in general, there is a decreased quality in life. But like, I disagree with both of those statements. Well, I don't disagree with both the statements. I'm sorry. I disagree with the logic behind it. Like, I would say that quality of life has increased year by year, every single year since the 1800s. I would say quality of life for an average human being has continued to go up and up and up. And I would say that manufactured demand has also continued to go up and up and up. So it would seem almost as if as manufactured demand goes up and up and up, so does quality of life goes up and up and up, right?
I don't think that those two things are very much
They're not related. They're
like,
not related at all. Do you see
okay.
that now?
Yeah.
Manufactured demand and quality of life are totally unrelated, but you just related them together.
They okay from from like a straight point, like let's say like give an example of a manufactured demand, let's say soda drinks. The diabetes and all that kind of stuff that is like you have to manufacture demand for that,
Okay.
and then you can actually sell this product. Whereas if you didn't have that kind of demand for it, then you couldn't be able to sell it. The whole point of manufacturing demand for something is to sell something that doesn't really have that kind of value. And so when you do that, you're automatically decoupling the actual value from the perceived value. And so when you do that, it always starts to gravitate towards, okay, what is business going to do? It's going to increase its profits. It's going to create as much margin as it can. So therefore, it's going to decrease the value that it can provide. So that's how you get the higher margins. So it just naturally kind of just gravitates towards that. Sure, you can find exceptions. It's like we manufacture demand for this yoga practice and everybody's becoming healthier. It's like, cool, that's a good example, but that's an exception, you know? Like when I talk about this kind of stuff, it's not like a law of physics where, you know, in every single case, it works out exactly like this. You know, there's a whole galaxy, you know, like um, there's a whole solar system that we're a part of. And this moon that we have is circling around us, you know? And so we have the sun, and I'm talking about the sun versus the planets and all that kind of stuff. And the moons, I'm not really like, yeah. I mean, they make a
way off tangent. So
yeah.
the core point I was going to make was,
Okay.
at least in this particular subsection, is that manufactured demand, and you just agreed with this a couple minutes ago, manufactured demand and quality of life are not related. They just can't be related. They truly can't be related, right?
It can be, but not to say that they absolutely are.
Because
Like,
would you agree with me that manufactured demand has increased from the 1800s till now?
yeah. Well, I'm not sure.
Would you say it's gone down?
No, I would not say it's gone down. Definitely not. I think that I would probably speculate that in the 1900s and like mid, like 19, maybe 40s, 50s, like after World War II and all kind of stuff, then manufacturing demand and conspicuous consumption probably rise. That's my speculation.
Okay, sure. That's fine.
So yeah.
Let's go 1940s. 1940s till now,
Sure.
manufactured demand has gone up, right?
Yeah.
How about quality of life? 1940s to now.
I think it's gone up, but it's kind of stagnating and kind of declining a little bit now. Like life expectancy has actually gone down.
From the 1940s, I guarantee.
No, not from 1940s, no, but from like more recently. Like if you looked at a chart, it was like up and then it kind of went, or up and then it kind of
right. But in general, I'm saying since the 1940s till now, manufactured demand has gone up as well as quality of life. So if we were to conjecture that they were related, which I'm saying they're not related, but if we were to conjecture that they were related, what would the logical conclusion be given those two?
I mean, if you're just comparing those two things and nothing else, then sure, but you can correlate anything at that point. Exactly. I know what you're going to say is that
correlate anything you want.
You're going to correlate, like I'm correlating just stuff randomly, which I would say I'm not, like, I guess that, I mean, is that what you're trying to get to? Is that like, I'm just correlating stuff that kind of happened at the same time and I'm saying this led to that. And I'm not really like getting to something else.
That's not quite it. That's not quite it. But what I am saying is I got to get back to the point because I swear a few minutes ago you said that manufactured demand is not related to quality of life. I feel like we both agreed on that, and then you went off on a tangent, and then you said that.
Okay, you're jumping from like, it's like manufactured demand as like a systemic thing, and it's like, okay, yeah, that gravitates towards a lower quality of life, and it works in a way that you can't just say like, okay, manufactured demand is directly correlated to a poor quality of life. It's like, well, you can have a lot of manufactured demand and it's only going to reach 1% of wealthy people. And their life can be fucking miserable because they have to have that yacht. You know what I'm saying? So it's the fundamental of like the mechanics of what it's doing is harmful. That's what I'm saying.
Manufactured demand.
Yes. Now, because it's feeding into this marketing system and this economic system that just wants to have more consumption and more of that materialistic paradigm reinforced because it's just helpful for that.
And you figure that manufactured demand is harmful because of the reasoning you stated earlier about increasing, Coke is bad for you, but we manufacture the demand for it so that its value is different from its actual value. Like you now perceive Coca-Cola to have a different value than it's really just a can of sugar, right? But because we marketed it to you fancy, you now perceive the value of Coca-Cola to be different than its actual value. So you perceive it to have different value. And so it has a negative impact. Like that's the basic logic behind what you're saying, right?
In essence, yeah.
But do you see how that's like circumstantial? Like, do you see how like you gave an example of the yoga studio, right? And you already admit that, yeah, it's not always the case, right? You're making the case that it's most of the time it's bad, right? That's kind of the case you're making.
I mean, it's usually used for that. Like the best cases of it and why it is mostly used is to sell sugar in a can. That's mostly why it's used because you wouldn't have to manufacture demand for healthy food. It's like, hey, it's healthy. There you go. It's like, this is what we got. I'm actually providing a piece of value to you. And I don't really have to, like, my marketing would be, here's the value. Whereas if you're selling a Big Mac, it's like, it's tasty. Look at the condensation on the edges of the patty or something like that. Whatever, I'm just making this shit up. But like, you can see how there's so much pizzazz and things diverting away from the actual value, what you're getting. What's the actual nutrition?
So that's really interesting. So I'm not so sure that I buy that that's the majority of cases of manufactured demand. I don't buy that. What would you say to someone who says that?
Walk down the street. I mean,
No, there's no advertising on my street. If I walk down the street, there's no ads.
yeah, I know, but like if you're walking down, I don't know, Santa Monica Boulevard or like, it's like you just have to just see what's being marketed out there right now. Like, I don't know about you. I guess maybe I live in a completely different universe in terms of like, what's marketed to me. But every time I'm on YouTube, I'm looking at stuff. It's like, buy this course and I will show you the 10 different trading patterns that I use to make money off of the market or something like that. And it's like anybody who knows is like, okay, that's bullshit, you know. Or I'm going to sell you this, workout plan, and it's like you don't need a workout plan. Just do some push-ups. Like everybody knows this.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
So
and obviously burgers.
I hate to boil down what you're saying, but simple mind, simple man. But so to someone who says, I don't buy your argument, your best arguments against that are A, walk along Santa Monica Boulevard, and B, watch some YouTube.
I mean, I'm being metaphorical here. Why don't you buy it would be my question. Like, why do you think that people inflating the value, which is not there in their products, is not happening?
Well, no. Definitely in the yoga studio example, I don't think they're inflating their value.
Yeah, but I mean, like to your point, it's like, okay, they're not inflating their value, but reverting to the yoga thing, it's like, I think a majority of it is that they are trying to sell you burgers and a whole bunch of crap that you don't need, that doesn't really provide the value that they're kind of portraying that it will. When Hershey sells its chocolate, they always present it as like, oh, have s'mores, be with your friends, that kind of thing. They're really trying to hit at those points where it's like, okay, I want to be social, I want to be with friends, I want to do that kind of thing. It's very subtle. They're not saying it, and nobody can really pin it down on them, and nobody can really say that that's what they're trying to market themselves as being like, oh, we're going to sell you this, like this is what you're going to get, because they're portraying all that kind of stuff. But really, when you look at it, it's like, what are they really trying to sell you, and what are they really showing? It's like they're very, it doesn't quite make too much sense. Like they're really trying to ingrain themselves in our culture, I guess. So it makes sense for them to kind of do it that way. Kind of getting way off here, but yeah, I mean they're all these companies that are manufacturing so much demand that we just don't need. And I don't know how anybody can live in this society without seeing that every single day. Like, just go to the movie theater, Coca-Cola everywhere, or this other movie or this other thing. And it's just like all these, I mean, even the movie that you're watching, it's like, what do people see? They watch superhero movies. I mean, what is that? That's just like mindless entertainment. It's not showing you a deeper, like, artful form and showing you how you can see more of reality to be beautiful and expanding your mind or anything like that. It's not any of that. It's just like
So
just
it
sugary.
it seems, and I hate to boil down your arguments again, but it
Okay.
seems like the core of what you're saying is, isn't it self-evident? Isn't it obvious that all this marketing is happening and it's bad?
Well,
Is
it's
that
not.
at
It's
least
not that.
the majority of it? Like I buy that there is some bad marketing or bad what is it, whatever, inflation, but it seems that the core of what you're saying that in favor of most of it is bad isn't it obvious? Isn't it self-evident? Right?
Not that it's self-evident per
Or
se.
obvious.
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
if you want to get it, if you really want to get it skeptical enough, we can go full purist on it, and say, come from this perspective of like, appearances are given, just that they are appearances, and everything separate from that is a judgment. Just go full skeptic here, and to say that anything within your mind that you say that it is just a skeptical kind of position. Just looking at that, if you look at the appearance of everything that you see around you, I would, I would, I would conjecture that a majority of that stuff. I mean, what do you market? It's like financial products, food that's not healthy, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot more marketing being done selling you burgers than selling you salads. I think everybody can agree with that. If you live in America, like everybody can give you that kind of
Right. So
consensus.
the core of your argument is it's obvious.
It's, I mean, yes, but it's also empirical, because when you say it's obvious,
Well,
then
no,
it's like it's
obvious
self-evident
empirical
in
are
that,
different, right?
what?
Like something being obvious and something being empirical are two different things.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think you're trying to say that it's obvious, but it's obvious because it's empirical, because you see it every day.
Well, I'm not so sure I see it.
Okay, maybe you are living in a bubble. I have no idea, but I don't know how you could. I guess you would have to kind of sit down with me or go with me so I can kind of point it out. Be like,
So,
hey, that billboard right there selling you weed. Do you need weed? No, they don't really need it. Like, what is that trying to like? That's not really doing any kind of thing. I mean, or like this kind of like lingerie company or whatever, like this, clothing company has a really, sexy woman on the thing, and they're kind of just manufacturing demand. It's like, well, you could buy underwear anywhere. I mean, why do you need to buy from there? Like there's a lot of different cases. It's like very much like in your face. So I guess I don't know how to relate to you that I don't I don't know how you can like say that it's not happening. I just don't know how.
I'm not saying it's not happening.
Okay.
I'm just saying that it's very difficult to justify the claim that it's most of the time. It's difficult, and if your best argument is that isn't it obvious? If you've read philosophy, and I know you have, you probably read much more than me. The argument that it's obvious is a very weak one. I'm sure you can agree with me on that point by itself. That the claim that the argument that it's obvious, like in a vacuum, put yourself in a vacuum, and
Sure.
and someone's just sitting at you and trying to make an argument. Doesn't matter, arbitrary argument, and their main defense for that argument is, isn't it obvious? Do you buy that argument? Do you think any philosopher
I mean,
anywhere?
obviously no, but here's the thing. I'm not talking in a vacuum. Like when I talk about it, it's empirical, like you see it. The same way that you see the mountains. It's like in California, we have mountains. And I guess you're kind of arguing like, well, how do you know that we have mountains? Like, how do you know that there's snow on top of the mountains, let's say? And it's like, well, you look at it. I mean, it's right,
Well,
right
no, no,
there,
no, no. I think you're totally wrong. Do you know why
Okay.
I know that there are mountains in California? Do you know why?
Does you see them?
No, it's not because I see them. It's because you and I agree that there are mountains in California. It's nothing more than that.
I mean,
You and I agree
you know,
on what a mountain is, right? You and I agree that if ground is elevated a certain amount, all right, whatever, elevated a certain amount, that is a mountain, right? You and I agree on that definition. And we can go measure it. I mean, theoretically, we can go measure the elevation, right? And we can figure out, oh, this right here is sufficient elevation to where you and I agree that it's a mountain. So that's how I know it's a mountain. It has nothing to do with me seeing the mountain. If you had to see everything to believe it, like you wouldn't believe in China. I've never seen China. Have you ever seen China?
I mean, okay. Okay. I mean, if you really want to get super, super like deep on it, I mean, I guess I'm not trying to get that deep with what I'm trying to talk about, I guess, on this show.
I know.
Which I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, I'm a full you know, naive realist. Like I don't believe in the physical paradigm. And that's very radical for a lot of people. And I don't usually, try to drill that into anybody's head. I don't know how much you really kind of look into the philosophies of Spinoza in Berkeley, but I mean, all that idealism, I'm really, more of a fan of. So I mean, yes, totally, I agree with you. But to be like a, a level above that, more practically, for me to have a dialogue with other people, I like there's like this level of like just pragmatism, like straight up, like how am I going to fill my belly? $2 for a Jack in the Box burger. Okay. Step below that, what's actually giving me the nutrition? Like how do I know like what is actually in my food? And I'm thinking it through. Like there's another level of like actual thought. And then there's the next level of like, okay, what is reality? Like there's food and there's this and there's that, but how do I know what the difference is? Why is my mind making these, differential assumptions? Like I feel like that's what you're trying to get at when I'm not really having that kind of conversation. I'm pointing out
You're
here.
definitely right. That's why I kept quiet. Because
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too deeply, but I definitely think that I cringe a little bit when I hear people making arguments like it's isn't it obvious? Like I don't know. I know that there's more context in this particular case, but
Yeah.
but if it's such a bad argument, why even make it? Like skip right over it. Like I know like pragmatically, like most people, oh yeah, of course, I hate look at all the advertisements, they're bad. Or I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Most people agree with you, and you can have a good discussion about it. You don't have to question reality, right? But I don't care about practical application. I mean, philosophy. What kind of real practical? I'm not talking about psychology. There might be some practical applications of psychology, but I'm talking core philosophy. What practical applications are I spent years thinking of. There's one topic that I've spent years thinking about, like seriously years. You want to know what topic I've been thinking about for years? It's uh, justifying imprisoning people. That's a topic that I've been. I think I've got it in my head now, but like I won't tell you what conclusion I've come to because it would take like weeks for me to describe it. But the conclusion I came to, the most logically consistent conclusion I came to, has no practical application. I'll tell you. I'll tell you my logical conclusion. My logical conclusion that I've made after thinking about this for a really long time is that on a philosophical level and truly logically consistent, we can never imprison anyone, ever. And I'll justify that to you another time. But that's the conclusion I've come to. Now there is no practical application to that because we have to imprison people. We have to imprison people. If you murder someone or if you steal a bunch of money, you have to be in prison, right? There's no practical application. But I think on a logical level, if you and I had 7 or 8 hours right now to sit, I think I could lay my case to you as to why we can never ever imprison someone. And even if I could convince you of the fact that we can never, on a logical and philosophical level, imprison anyone ever, that has no practical application because I would never suggest that even if it's logically consistent that we should never imprison anyone, we should actually apply that in real life. That's what I care about. I don't care about practical application of things. I don't care about having a practical conversation. I care about having this is ethics. This is philosophy. I mean, you want to have practical conversations, go to a science class. I don't care about that stuff. Now, I understand this is your show. This is not my show. This is your show. So
Yeah.
you want to have practical conversations? Like, okay, good. With a philosophical undertone, good. Let's do it. That sounds kind of fun, right? But I think if you really want to have a good conversation about ideas and stuff, you can't be worried about having a practical conversation. You have to talk about the reality, like, or realism, or whatever you mentioned earlier. I don't know.
Yeah.
In that world, arguments like "Isn't it obvious?" just do not hold up. They just don't hold up, and it's not even worth saying. I don't know. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, because you want to lean a lot more towards the philosophical truths, and I guess that's really the kind of the grind. Is that I hear you. I would love to, pontificate about the physical paradigm and all those kinds of things. I mean, that would be great. I just don't know how to have a dialogue with some people. I mean, I would sit at like, and also, I mean, I kind of just get tired of that after a while. I mean, because for me, in my journey, in terms of like, I guess getting a little bit more spiritual here, it's like when I actually read Outlines of Pyrrhonism, and I listened to a lot of Alan Watts, and I started, contemplating a lot about what reality is. I got to a point where I had a breakthrough, a spiritual kind of understanding. This happened 2 times, actually 3 times, where I had a change in consciousness where I realized that the universe is not physical. And that was something empirical for me that I can't give to somebody else. You'd have to actually go and investigate it for yourself and actually get there. And so, after that point, I kind of realized I was like, okay, all this philosophy that people are learning about, Plato and freaking Socrates and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's cool debate, it's fun, but like when I walk outside and I see that nobody's really living to their full potential, and that this world is slowly killing itself because we're polluting it, and nobody's in any agreement in politics because everybody's shooting out their ideas about what is morally just and how morals just shouldn't be there. And then seeing how all that can be very much resolved by looking at developmental ecology, whether it be spiral dynamics, integral theory, Susan Greuter's,
I
stages
thought you
of
hated integral
development.
theory. What happened?
Huh?
I thought you hated integral theory. What happened?
Oh, I don't hate integral theory. It's a very good thing. I don't know when I said I hated that, but integral theory, I think it leans so spiritual when he starts talking about those higher stages of like the super mind and all that kind of stuff. I mean, uh, it loses a lot of people, and also I think it's just kind of like once you get past the stages of, let's say, coral or turquoise, whichever model you're using, it just kind of breaks down after that point, and I don't think that it's even really practical or has any kind of use beyond that point. That's just my opinion. Um, so that I don't know. That's just my thing. But yeah, I guess getting back to what I was saying, it's like there's just so many things out there that it pulls my interest more than just kind of debating philosophy, I guess. Because in my opinion, I feel like I've gotten to the end of what a lot of philosophy gives you. My camera died, but I can still talk. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much out there that I would really like to have an impact on, rather than sitting around and doing, philosophy. I already kind of went through that. I would sit at what is it, the Theosophical Society, when I lived in Illinois, and I'd sit there with all these old people that had not really much else to do, and they would just kind of sit there in the library with me and talk about various philosophies and trying to get to like what is the truth of humanity. Then I would talk with all the younger people at their headquarters, and then I would have debates with like my friend, who was deeply freaking into this kind of stuff. I mean, he knew everything about everything. Like he was ridiculous. Um, and we would start talking about just the machine elves and like what those people are, and when you take DMT or whatever, like all this kind of stuff. And like I don't know, it's like for me, I already kind of like went through that, where there's like a lot of head knowledge and a lot of like getting swell-headed that now I'm kind of just like, okay, I know that I need to do something different. So, I mean, it's fun to kind of debate all that philosophy, but I'm sorry that I can't really give that to you because my focus just isn't there. It's just a long-winded way of saying my focus just isn't there, I guess. So,
Oh, that's disappointed to hear. It's okay though.
I mean, there's a lot of it. I can point you to those same references that I've come to because I feel like it's gonna be. I don't know how much you are partial to spirituality, but I think that if you were to study that a lot more and to actually do a lot more practices of like meditation and contemplation and self-inquiry and all those kind of things, and you actually got like a spiritual awakening of some kind, then you'd see what I'm talking about. Then you're like, oh shit, like there it is. This is what I was looking for, and I didn't even know that that's what I was looking for. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely haven't had any spiritual awakening of any kind. I,
Yeah.
I read a lot, but I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting to hear that you were really into this kind of stuff and had an awakening, and now you see that it's useless or something.
I mean, it's not useless. Like it's kind of like I mean, it's like all the analogies, like the Buddhist analogies, or I don't know if it's a Buddhist analogy, but I usually relate it to that, where you have a boat, you cross the river, and you don't take the boat with you. You know, like it's scaffolding. A lot of it is scaffolding. Um, and I think that if you were to read into, I actually gave the book to this other guy, Julian Blanc, but about outlines of Pyrrhonism. If you haven't read that, I'd go deep into that. And if you've read it, go back, go into that again.
I thought I read a lot, man. Dude, you mentioned some names that I've never even heard of, man.
Well, there's so much out there that I mean, if somebody were to sit down, like if a philosophy major were to sit down with me and they'd talk about stuff, I'd be like, I don't know most of what you're talking about because to me, like right when I hear something or when I hear about something, I kind of dissect it. I go through it and I kind of like parse it out. And I'm like, okay, this is a lot of stuff that's kind of like just a rehash. Like a lot of, let's say, Derrida's work, ridiculous to fucking read. Like, I don't know if you looked at any of it, but it's like super like just dense and like you just can't like do anything about it. But, I think that Leo from actualize.org, when he started talking about it and he laid it out, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, but the actual source material I wouldn't even touch. But all the concepts and when he was talking about it and how I related it to my realization of breaking the naive realist paradigm, that's what I'm concerned about. Not necessarily like all that kind of number stuff. So when I say that all this stuff that you haven't heard about, just know like I'm not like a scholar and all that kind of stuff. I just know the stuff that like gets me what I want, which is, the truth. And a lot of stuff out there is just a rehash of like the same stuff. I mean, you look at freaking, I don't know, what's his name? The guy, Eckhart Tolle, Eckie Boy, as some people call him. That's a joking name. I mean, he's just talking about like the same kind of stuff that Buddhists talk
Kevin,
about.
you're still on.
Yeah.
Are you guys still
Yeah.
on, man?
Yeah, we're still talking, man. We're still going strong. My camera died, but I was just talking to
I
him.
can't hear you guys. Oh no, I can hear you.
I think Matt and I had a useful discussion. I think I
Yeah.
laid my point out okay. What do you
Yeah.
think, Matt?
I
Critique
guess
me.
I feel like I went on a little bit of a rant, I guess, but I hope that was helpful. I feel like it was somewhat helpful.
Yeah. I hope my feedback's helpful. I hope you can, like, I'm like what, 25% of the audience, I think. I think I don't know if it's your show, do it whatever you want, but if you could like maybe think a little bit like, oh, Kevin's in the audience. What would Kevin be thinking right now? What
I have a question for you, Kevin. Because this bothers me, Matt. I don't care if it bothers you or doesn't. What could Matt do to drive more audience? because I don't give a shit what he says, what he spouts, whatever. Like, I want to engage people, and I know, like, from his perspective, he wants to engage people around the right content. Got it, cool. But I don't care about that, obviously, from the platform side of things. Like, you got any advice on, other than just catering to you as one of 4 members, like, how do we get you to maybe mention to somebody else that, hey, this thing's kind of cool, like, you should come check it out?
I mean,
You can't, huh?
I originally came into this like thinking this is like a fun little philosophy, like little channel, but it's not. Like after talking to Matt a little bit more, it's not really a philosophy channel. It's more of a, I don't know what to think of it, like psychology and like human patterns mixed with politics and a little bit of philosophy mixed in. Like it's like a lot of practicality is associated with this like channel here. And like core philosophy, like I was mentioning to Matt, other Matt, isn't it doesn't care about application. Like real philosophy doesn't care about application. Like there are some crazy philosophical ideas that are pretty internally and logically consistent that have no practical use whatsoever. Like tragedy of the commons. Like, well, okay, tragedy of the commons actually does have practical use. How about the what's the other classic dilemma? The one with the train. Matt, help me. What's the one with the train with the fat guy and you push him over?
Yeah, you lost me.
Prisoner's Dilemma. That's not
No,
that one, but
although the prisoner's dilemma
the only
has
one I got.
no practical application either, right? The prisoner's dilemma is if you confess, if you both confess, then you both get time. If you both don't confess, then you get a certain amount of time. If one confesses and the other, yeah, that whole dilemma,
Yeah, that's
no
less.
practical application.
No, that does have some practical application. I mean, that's game theory, and that has to do with like what is it? Game A versus game B dynamics.
Game theory, I know that the prisoner's dilemma is the basis for a lot of game theory, but
Yeah.
game theory doesn't have much practical application. I think it has some application.
Oh, it has a ton. Are you kidding me? Like the whole tit for tat thing in terms of like how to, manage your relationships within business and, other types of things. That's what came out of it. Like
I might be wrong. I might be wrong on the game theory thing, but I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bust your balls with it.
Hours looking into game theory. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But philosophy doesn't care. My main point is philosophy doesn't care about application. It doesn't. It just doesn't care about application. And this channel seems to care about application. Seems to care about politics and what's going on. And that's not a core philosophy channel. I don't know what it is. But
well, I would argue that true philosophy cares about an actual result. And I think that the Western tradition has kind of hijacked it and it made it so abstract to the point where it doesn't have any kind of true application and it doesn't improve the quality of your life so that it's subject to not being useful at all.
Like, I think the only goal of philosophy is to be internally logically consistent. I think that should be the true goal of philosophy.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I wouldn't completely agree with that definition, but I'll just play with it. When you do that, then you realize deep truths about reality when you do that. And so that is the reward that you get. And you're not going to act the same. You're not going to think the same. If you think that the world is just a dumb material thing, that it's just matter that you're going to manipulate, you're going to treat it differently than if you see it as an actual spiritual process.
Oh, shit, dude. I don't understand. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm slow, but I don't know what you meant by that.
Well, I mean, I guess getting it back down to, something a little bit more bite-sized. If we think that, the original topic, if you think that money is an actual physical thing, which it's not, it's just an abstraction. If you think it's an actual physical thing, you will fight tooth and nail for your job rather than going to politicians, going to your previous work environment, going to different, NGOs or whatever you have
So
to actually get an idea across of like, oh, well, maybe we should just, give sufficient credit to people so that they can actually, get their returns that these machines are producing.
Can I, Matt? I got a question around maybe the channel and the purpose of the channel.
I got you. Okay.
I think some of these like very let's just I don't know what the right terminology here, but like some of these like very progressive or out there ideas, let's say. When I say out there, I don't care whether it's liberal or conservative, doesn't matter. Like out away from the center, right? So you're out in some direction. They're interesting. Like I think they actually make you think about things. And to be honest, part of it, some of the stuff I agree with, some of it I don't. But like I think it's interesting to talk about. What's interesting to me and where something that's missing for me is I don't think you ever lay out the path on how to get there. And that's actually frustrating for me. Or not that I even expect that of you, but like to get to there requires so much upheaval. Or maybe it doesn't. But like I can't figure, like I don't know what it would get to. And actually that would be for me a piece to talk about more of this is an ideal and this is where we're at and this is actually a reasonable road to get there. And for me that's something that I've been personally missing
Mhm.
from some of these things.
I guess you don't feel that way like I'm doing that. I mean, I feel though I'm kind of giving my proposition. Like when I say we have to get, the best minds in propaganda and marketing, all that kind of stuff to, oh, sorry.
I gotta go eat in a second. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
finish your thought though. I don't
Okay,
want to.
yeah. So when I say like, okay, we got to get the best minds that we can to actually get out a message of what money actually is, and then a lot of the ideas and concepts and things we can actually have a consensus over of making different policies so that we can actually get rid of this problem instead of
Right.
going in the circle. To
So
you, I guess that doesn't sound like a
it doesn't, and I'll tell you where it breaks down. We're
Okay.
gonna get the best minds. Well, who's gonna agree on who those people are?
well, that's me, of course.
That right there is like, okay, well, that's a non-starter. If that's what's required,
I mean,
you and I are gonna have a disagreement about that, and maybe it's 10% disagreement. Maybe we're more aligned than other people, but some other people are going to have a 90% disagreement with you.
I
And
guess,
I don't actually know how you get past that type of situation.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of like I don't know, what do you call it? Uh, it's like that's not like my main point. I guess
I
I'm trying to
know,
say.
I
Like,
know, but that's where I get stuck. I don't even get stuck on your main point. And maybe
okay,
that's just me.
yeah. I mean, when I say like the best minds, I mean that's really kind of just another term for we have to be really good at spreading that message. We don't
Okay.
necessarily have to have the best minds, but you know, that I mean, I feel like that's kind of like I don't know. It's just kind of like a detail. It's not really like the main point, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I
Me.
think it's I think it is. I think it's an important detail because if it wasn't the best minds, if it was we need to get 50.1% of the population on board with this, it'd be like, okay, well that's actually now I can conceptual, I can get my head around what you actually need to do. Anyway, I'm sorry. I gotta go again. Anyway, I didn't think you guys were still gonna be on here.
Yeah, we had to pick a bone real quick, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't know.
apparently.
Yeah.
All right.
Matt, any chance you can not close this thing one more time? I just want to make one last
Yeah,
comment.
no, I'll leave it. I don't need to
I
close
swear,
it.
Matt. Other Matt. There's just one last comment. I swear.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Um. Oh, sorry. Gotta formulate it correctly because I do actually need to go. I'm starving. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe they were advertising to me Big Macs, so I'm gonna go. I'm kidding. I'm not. Dinner downstairs, but so it's on the philosophy. It's on the philosophy and kind of related to this channel too. So like your point earlier about how the philosophy doesn't have any real application, only cares about internal consistencies. So it has to do with that.
Okay. I don't really agree with that. But
I know you don't. And let me tell you why I think that's the case.
Okay.
So I think about a lot of things, and I'm pretty passionate about many topics. One of them is like a group of ideas, and I'm sure you've heard of at least one of these three ideas. They're all pretty interrelated. So it's a spurious correlation, um, uh, but the butterfly effect and chaos theory. Are you familiar with all three of these?
What was the first one?
Spurious correlation.
I think I've heard of that, but I forgot what that is.
And then butterfly effect and chaos theory, those are pretty.
Yeah. I know those two. Yeah.
So these theories are like probably the basis of all of my thought. Like seriously, like I think I can extrapolate everything, all of my ideas and my thoughts down to like these three ideas, and they're all super related. All right. So spurious correlation. Spurious correlation is pretty interesting. It's a statistical idea. So it's okay. You know what's kind of interesting? A lot of areas of thought have ideas that kind of ruin the whole area of thought. So let me give you an example. So for example, a lot of people study like logical fallacies, right? Like thinking about logic and stuff like that. But did you know that there is a logical fallacy called fallacy, which means that to ever exclaim that there is a fallacy in a logical argument is fallacious in and of itself. Have you heard of that before?
In other words, yes.
Yeah. So basically, the whole study of fallacies is totally fallacious. Like it's interesting, right? Like fallacies don't mean anything because fallacy, right? Spurious correlation is that for statistical analysis. So it's an idea in the field of statistics where a lot of scientists and whatever run statistical analysis and try to find out trends and see where things are going and stuff like that. And the idea of spurious correlation is that you can never ever use any statistic to justify any claim ever. And it's a corely studied statistical concept. So it's basically discounting every statistic in existence. And the basis of it is it boils down to, how do you know that this is not a coincidence? So you see two trends, right? And they both seem correlated, but how do you know that correlation is causation? How do you know it's not just a coincidence? And so the study is, what are the craziest coincidences that we can map out in history? So you can there's actually a website dedicated to it. You can go to it and it'll list a bunch of weird coincidences. So for example, the most famous one is the rate at which rape happens in the summer is almost 100% correlated to popsicle sales, which is odd, right? Because you would never think.
I remember you telling me this back when I did my presentation. Yeah. What website is that by chance?
Spurious correlation. Just Google that. Spurious correlation, and it'll list a bunch of them. And then there's more, right? So obviously rape and popsicle sales are totally unrelated, completely unrelated. But from a purely statistical standpoint, they're 100% correlated, or nearly 100% correlated, right? So that's sorry, small side tangent, but it was just interesting to see that some areas of study have like concepts that invalidate the whole area of study. But anyway, so spurious correlation, butterfly effect, and chaos theory. So these are like kind of the basis of like most of my thought, where the idea is like the butterfly effect is, a butterfly may flap its wings on one side of the earth and it may cause a tornado on the other side. Same thing with chaos theory. So chaos theory is basically everything that happens anywhere in the universe. It's caused by an indefinite number of factors. So there are an infinite number of factors that affect everything that happens. So everything from you turning on a lamp to how a ball falls down, or how an apple falls down from a tree. It's not just gravity. There are an infinite number of factors associated with an apple falling from a tree, from you turning off the lamp. An infinite number of factors. So to even suggest that gravity is responsible for an apple falling from a tree in the world of chaos theory and the butterfly effect, it's totally irresponsible. Almost, it's scientifically irresponsible to say that because there are an infinite number of factors. How can you possibly say that one of these factors is what's causing it? No, it's an infinite number of factors. So that's kind of the basis of of um, chaos theory and butterfly effect and Spear's correlation, right? How do you know that it's not just a correlation? Like how do you know that it's not just, it just so happens that every single time an apple falls off the tree or comes off the tree, it falls to the ground? How do you know it's not a coincidence? Like you can't really know because there are an infinite number of factors. There's no way you could control for it all. So that's why in the world of philosophy, it's very difficult, or it's difficult for me to think that there is some application involved. And the reason why is because application deals in the real world, right? Like this happened, let's try to figure out what ethical rules or what philosophy is backing it. But that attempt is totally useless because there's truly, if you dig down real deep, truly, there is no way to find out why anything happens. There is no way. And any attempt to try to describe why anything happens ever is just a useless attempt in a truly, purely logical sense. It's useless, right? Completely useless. So philosophy is that one little section of the world, the one little section of the world where we can describe things and it's not just a useless attempt in a purely logical sense. So that's why I kind of like to hold philosophy as a little baby. It's like this right here, it's totally internally logical, and we can have a discussion about it. And there's no chance of, so long as we agree on the basic laws of logic, obviously, right? So I'm a big proponent of, that's the other thing. I'm a big proponent of defining things. Like I think absolute truth and stuff like that. I think absolute truth is just what you and I agree upon. And I think I mentioned that to you in Slack or whatever. So that's kind of why we don't have to call it philosophy. We can call it something else. The word doesn't really matter, right? But some corner of the world that doesn't care about results. Because truthfully speaking, if we're talking on a purely logical basis, it is impossible to say why anything ever has happened. And any attempt to try to predict or understand why something happened is a completely futile, attempt. Yeah.
Got it out. Awesome. Yeah, I guess you said a lot of stuff there. I don't know what I would really want to tackle. I don't know if you really have the time to, but what I have to say is that, if you really care about the truth and you really want to dig down, do you just go into non-duality? As much as it may seem unpalatable to you, as much as it might not just, it might give you a bad taste when you start to try to get into it. I think when you start seeing that and you start breaking down the dualities of what is pragmatism, what is not practical, what is science, what is not science, and you actually look up the definition of science on Google and many different dictionaries, and you actually look up the definition of all these different types of things, and you see how all of language connects, and you see how all of language is really just symbols, but then what are symbols as opposed to the actual thing? It's what's that duality? And then break the actual duality down. You see, because it's this over here is philosophy. This over here is the real world. That's kind of what we're talking about here. But if you break that down, which I think old philosophy was really spirituality, and they just called it philosophy instead of spirituality because they were very focused on just the mind, kind of like how there's one type of yoga that's very much like intellectually based. I forget the name of it, but it's very much focused on that. There's other ones that are focused on reaching enlightenment through the body, through other like devotion or something like that. You can see that. You can see like a lot of the texts from these philosophers way back in the day, Socrates and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when they talk about their point of view and what they say, it's very similar to like Zen teachers, stuff like that. So, like, if you really want to get down to it, I think you would kind of like, cut that barrier down. Because to me, what it looks like, and I know that this probably doesn't sound very nice to you, but like, it seems like you're following like one kind of religion and you're trying to reach truth through that. You're saying like there is like, this, set of gods or this one God that, you very much believe in. But if you were to kind of take that wall down of like, this is philosophy, this is spirituality, this is practical matters, these are these things. When you start to break those down and you take a multidisciplinary approach to what you're trying to get to, like, which is the truth, I think a lot of that kind of stuff will resolve itself, because it sounds like a lot of quantification that you're using with those three different principles that you were talking about originally.
Well, they're really one principle. I think it's all just chaos theory. I think that is my God, I guess, in
Yep.
in a very odd sense. But I don't know how to resolve it in my mind. Like,
You don't.
after I've been exposed to chaos theory.
Just research any mathematician or logician that tries to write out and understand philosophy through the mind. They all go insane. So don't go that route. Don't go through the mind. You have to go through it in a different kind of way. I mean, really think about how you can't really reach the truth unless you're in a higher state of consciousness, which, if you don't like that, you need to be in a different state of consciousness in order to really see all of the truth that you are really seeking. I mean, if you just want to do math and you want to do philosophy forever, go knock yourself out. If you want to go crazy, go fucking crazy. I don't care. But it seems like you're getting to the point where you want more than that. That's what I'm thinking.
No, I'm actually, I don't think I've gone crazy. I think I'm fairly content. I think I
Oh
understand.
no, you're not crazy. I'm just saying the pursuit of infinity through the mind makes you crazy.
No. I mean, maybe I'm not pursuing infinity. I think I'm fairly satisfied with the conclusion that nothing has value, and everything's arbitrary, and we can't predict anything. Everything's pretty much random. Like, I think I'm pretty happy with that conclusion.
I mean, if you're happy with that, then I
But
guess
like,
you're happy
well,
with
I'm
it.
happy with it because it makes sense. It's all consistent. I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. Like, we don't have time for it right now, but I really want to tell you why I think, and I want you to poke holes in it too. But I really want to, because I haven't really been able to tell anyone about it, because this is a recent like epiphany of mine that we can't imprison people. We can't ever imprison people. And I think it's totally logically consistent. I haven't been able to talk to anyone about it, so I'd love to tell you about it sometime. But I'm happy. Like, I thought about it for a couple of years and I resolved it in my mind. And I feel pretty content. I don't know.
Okay, I mean, wait, were you gonna say your thing, or was everything that you just said, was that your realization?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Was everything that you just said your realization, or were you gonna say what your realization was?
No, my well, what? Wait, say that one more time.
Okay. Were you gonna tell me your realization, or was everything that you just said, was that your realization?
Well, my realization about you can't imprison anyone is it's a really like, it's like a long discussion. Like, it's like I have to write it down or something and publish it, because like nobody's talking about it. like I read a lot of philosophy and nobody's talking about the philosophy of imprisoning people because it's almost like it's obvious, like, yeah, obviously he's done something wrong, so we got to punish him, right? But like, no, I don't know. Have you ever heard someone talk about that?
I mean, somewhere at some point, but really, I mean, the way that that whole thing operates, it's really democratic. I mean, we all decide what we don't want, like what behavior we don't want, and then we just imprison those people that do things that we don't want. I mean,
Just real
that's
brief,
that's as far as we go with it.
really, really briefly, really, really briefly. Okay.
Yeah.
We like you and I just agree. Hey, murder is bad. You can't kill. No, not murder. Let's go kidnapping. All right. You can't just like take people. All right. You can't just like against their will just take people and just like put them in a room. Right. Like in your home.
Which yeah, a majority of people will agree with that. So we create a
Just you and I.
democratic system.
You and
Yeah.
you and I are going to create the government right now. All right. You and I, just two people. Okay.
Okay. All right.
We agree that hey, you can't just like take people. You can't. You can't
Okay.
take. Okay?
Yeah.
How are we going to punish people who take people? Because we can't take them because we've already defined that you can't take people. It's not justified. You cannot take a person, so we can't take them, right? So how do we punish them?
So, okay, are you saying like when somebody takes a child from somebody else? Let's give an example here.
Yeah.
Like they kidnap some kid
Yeah, kidnap. Yeah.
beyond their will.
Yeah.
So are you saying that since they can't take people, the government can't take you and put you in a jail?
Well, no, the government is some entity, right? We didn't say
Sure.
that entities can't take people. We just said people can't take people, right?
Okay.
So, but who's gonna? I mean, okay, so we say, okay, this guy needs to be imprisoned, right? So,
Yeah.
how are we gonna transport this person into a prison cell? Well, there's got to be people involved, right? But people can't take people. We've already agreed that that's philosophically or ethically bad to take people. So how do we put them in jail?
I guess I'm trying to get to the point, but I guess I don't really see what exactly I'm not trying to see here. I mean, because you're saying, okay, it's bad to take people. So it's bad for, like, we agree upon nobody should be kidnapped and nobody should be able to take someone else without, their will.
Yeah,
And
without.
so beyond that person's will, they don't want to go to jail, so we can't take them. Is that what the argument is?
Yeah, that's exactly it. This guy doesn't want to go to jail, right?
Okay.
But we can't take him. How are you going to take him
By force.
against his will? But didn't we just define that we can't take people and put them in a room against their will?
Yeah. So, I mean, I see what you're getting at here. The thing is that you have to have, let's say, like back in high school, you have like your permanent record. Ooh, yeah, bad permanent record or something like that. And somebody does something. It's like when you do something bad in our society, we have a rule set up where you forego certain rights. I mean, I'm not like a legal scholar or whatever, but I think that's pretty much how our operation works. There's certain rights that you are given. It's like you shouldn't ever have certain things taken from you or whatever. But when you do certain things, it's like this right, this privilege that you have is taken from you. And that's how we operate. It's like everybody's given this privilege that you should not, it is wrong for that to happen. But when you are a danger to our society, we're going to strip you um, of that thing. And so
Right.
I see what you're saying where it goes against our core philosophy. And the thing is that the spirit of the law is what needs to remain versus the letter of the law. So when we look at it, it's like, what are we really trying to say when we say we don't want people to be taken? We're really trying to say we want to live in a society where people don't have like the freedom to just take what's not theirs. and we want to punish people for that. Like there's something intrinsically human part of us that wants this certain thing. And we can't like exactly put it straight down into a hard letter code that says for every single example, for every single instance, we have like a thought out plan that is like completely foolproof and can't be abused. Like, I just don't think that that exists. It has to be an ever evolving thing. But I think we can have a really good rule of law that can cover a lot of things that can be updated constantly, you know?
Right. No, you're on point. By the way, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you're totally right. You're totally well, kind of. So
Okay.
so here's the thing. So we want to punish these people, right? Right. So we strip them of their right to like whatever take like exist in society, right? And we take them and we put them in a room, right? Which would or will. I mean, our definition is kidnapping. We are kidnapping, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay because he doesn't have any rights anymore. So we stripped it of him. So very strictly speaking, we have kidnapped him, right? Very odd illusion that we have to reach from that is that there is nothing inherently ethically wrong with kidnapping people. It depends on the context in which the kidnapping happens. That is the very conclusion we have to reach if we're to imprison people. Right?
Yeah. I mean, when you really want to break it down, ethics are completely constructed by us. So really when we're trying to say when we want to produce ethics is that we want to affect society. I get, this is getting more practical, I guess, is that we want to create a system that is, for lack of a better term, fair for everybody. Would it be fair that that guy gets to keep going around and kidnapping kids when he could be the one just locked up, and then we just don't have to deal with that problem anymore?
No,
Yeah.
you're totally right on a purely application level, right? But Kevin Bailey over here, Kevin Bailey doesn't deal with pure application. He deal with these hard ethics, right? Or that
Sure.
hard philosophy, like we don't care about real application. We just care about the core philosophies, right? Because even though I admit that philosophy doesn't have in this purest form that I'm describing it doesn't have a application, even if that's true, it's kind of like a guideline. It's kind of like a guideline for how potentially ethics or how philosophy interacts with the real world could look, right? Like, for example, you say that things should be fair. Yeah, things should be fair. Yeah, things should be fair. Like that rule by
We
itself.
want them to be fair. Like if you take a poll, I mean, I'm not saying that this is, hard fast, rule across all of humanity, but kind of is. I mean, everybody just wants things to be fair. And, when the letter of the law can be abused to where it's not fair, then we would want to change it. And so I think a lot of that work is to do some philosophical debate and kind of get it, straightened out in that regard. But then also it's actually having the application be right too. So kind of like when you're writing code, it's like, okay, this code is good. And then, somebody hacks it. And it's like, okay, well, that's not really what we wanted. And then you have to change the code. And now it's like more complicated, but it serves its purpose, what you really wanted. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah.
Both soft and hard,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know
Anyway,
if that makes it more complicated, but
I mean, so like if we disregard application or whatever, just talk about philosophy and
but
we
I
talk-
mean, not to interject and kind of like, fight you on this, but
No.
the whole idea around, we're just going to get rid of practical application. We're just going to talk about philosophy. Anytime you say something like that, or you say a word, or you say something rather, you're always giving a kind of backhanded, or not backhanded, I don't know what the right term would be for this, but you're always having a silent juxtaposition against its opposite or against its other, because you can't say that we're going to talk about philosophy without there being an assumption that we're not talking about all these other things. And there's that interdependency that's always there, and you can't get rid of that. So that duality that you're saying, okay, we're going to talk about just philosophy. It's like there has to be non-philosophy for you to talk about philosophy. I hope that kind of makes my point here. Because it's like, okay, I feel like there's always going to be a gray area. There's always going to be a bleed off. And to say, okay, we're just going to focus on this, I just don't think that really drives it down. I mean, just like the mind body thing, it's like what you eat affects your mind, what you think is going to affect your physical form, and all that kind of stuff, goes together. It's like, how are you doing anything without your mind, and how are you doing anything without your body?
Yeah. I've never liked the whole there's a gray area.
Well, okay. I mean,
find a world in which there is no gray area.
I mean, okay, if there is no gray area and there's a line between philosophy and between reality, let's say, what is the line made out of between those two things?
I feel like I can't answer the question without contradicting myself.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's like there's a dependency.
Oh, there we go. There's your answer.
What is
the only valid answer?
What's the only valid answer?
The only valid answer is that I decline to answer.
Yeah, I guess you plead the fifth, because we all agree that pleading the fifth, like having the fifth, is a good thing to have. So
I don't know.
I mean, it's something to think about. I mean, duality.
I'm gonna have to think about this, because I have to change everything I think about, because I was happy for a while.
You wanted me to poke holes in it, and I was like, "Oh, you're happy? Okay, you're happy."
You're not poking holes in the idea itself. You're poking holes in like my whole thought paradigm. Like I can just, like, for a while, I was just like, I can just live in this world where like philosophy is just like strict facts, like strict logical deduction, and that's it. Like true or false. That's it. And then everything else, I'll just listen. I'll sit in. I'll listen in on, but I'll know that these are all just fools, just making odd statements and stuff like that, and I'll just listen along. And if someone has an interesting like concept or idea, I'll try it out, knowing that it's a total guess. Just see what happens. See if anything sticks to the wall. Otherwise, in this nice corner where we can sit down and have a discussion, and we can actually come to a conclusion. But
and I mean, that paradigm that you're coming from, it has its use. It is useful.
Oh, definitely. I do think it's useful. Even in my paradigm right now, I think it's useful, because this hard world is the basis. Like mathematics isn't definitely in this world, right? Yeah. And that definitely has application. Like you can't build a home without mathematics, right? Like, so even though mathematics is strict, black and white, no gray area, it has applications in this gray area, the rest of the world, which is gray area, I would say. So definitely has applications.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely in agreement about that. I mean, it's just that when you apply that to philosophy, I just don't think it works.
Fuck, man. You better be wrong, man. I'm sorry. That better be wrong. I'm gonna think about it. Seriously, I'm gonna think about it.
I mean, yeah, just think about the definition of science. Think about the definition of philosophy, epistemology, also, and then duality versus non-duality.
The only reason why I think you might be right, and I'm coming to this realization slightly, is like we're talking, for example, about prison right now, right? That's the philosophical topic. That doesn't. What is prison, right? That's not pure logic. That's not just 3 + 3 or 7 times 7 or whatever. It's not. It's something in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, we created an abstract concept called the government, and then we create another thing called the court. We create another thing called,
So
the
what I have to do
prison
is
system.
I have to, from a purely logical stance, from just true, false, 1 + 1, pure logical concepts, I have to derive the concept of a prison based on just purely black and white logical concepts. If I can do that, then I think I'm okay. I think my paradigm works. But if I have to pull in anything else from the gray world, I don't think it works.
So, I mean, I guess you're not a fan of the whole non-binary postmodernist movement that's going on.
Oh, Jesus, dude, the vocabulary, man, the vocabulary. What do you mean by that?
Oh, okay. I mean, I thought that was sorry. Um, so postmodernism, basically taking the stance of like there's not really a binary out there, like there's not black and white.
No,
There's
I highly disagree with that. Highly, highly. It. I've told you this before. There is black and white. It's what you and I define to be black and white. You and I
yeah.
sit down. For example, to be able to proclaim that something is true, like that in and of itself, like you and I both agree that we can proclaim that something is true. Like we're doing it right now. Every time you make a declarative statement, you're proclaiming that something is true. This is the basis for all thought, to be able to proclaim that something is true.
Well, so I guess to that point, sorry to interject, but um, when people were whatchamacallit, giving critiques of Jacques Derrida, kind of being one of the main leaders in terms of this postmodernist movement, they weren't understanding what he was talking about, mainly because his stuff was just so cryptic and ridiculous. But when they actually put his ideas down, they were realizing that he's writing with one hand and erasing with the other. Because when you start putting words out there, like I was saying, there's this juxtaposition saying, okay, there's this word, and there's this assumption that it is in difference to all of the other words in the language. Not just a different word, not just another type of word, but all other words. As orange is different from black, from green, from turquoise, from, all the other colors. So when we say that there is a difference between, black and white and things are that way, it's like, no, there's black and there's not black. And that's really truly what we're defining, because we're saying there's black. And so then there's orange, green, this, that, the other thing. And that's all one pool. And instead of it being like just this binary system, it's a infinite plurality that you're trying to portray here, and that is what's ignored. And so the deconstruction that he talks about with his whole thing is deconstructing that binary. So when we look at computer logic, for example, it's ones and zeros, and that's useful. It's pragmatic for that, but that cannot decode the essence of reality.
Man, the people you talk to must be so smart.
I mean, I try to talk to people that are really smart. I mean, but
You're like a million times smarter than me. It's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah, I mean, even saying that, I mean, it's like I don't really think that anybody owns their intelligence, like it's some capital in your brain. It's something that kind of just flows through you. So I wouldn't even say that like I'm smart per se. I've just learned how to, be in flow with certain things, and then people call me smart, and that's kind of how all this kind of comes about.
You can put together like a lot of complex topics and like string them along. It's incredible. Like I have a hard time following all that. Like
I'm just trying to answer your question. I mean, I'm not trying to like flex
No,
any muscles here.
I definitely asked you the postmodernism question. Yeah. Wow. I don't know.
I wouldn't put me on a pedestal though.
But you
I wouldn't
asked
do
me
that.
a question about postmodernism, the non-binary stuff. I totally don't agree with that. At least currently, right now, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think. I think I'm still convinced that there is a philosophical world where things are just black and white, and you pull in concepts from the real world like prison and like kidnapping and stuff, and it all still works together pretty nicely. I think it does, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to think about it a little bit more.
But could you agree though that there can't be philosophy without there being other things than philosophy?
Yeah, like kidnapping and prison and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, because
Yeah.
if when you say like, oh, like your bookcase is behind there. Like if I were to say, oh, this is like a book, you know, this book right here is about this, and you're like, let's say like I was talking about, you know, postmodernism, and you're like, oh, so this book is about words, and you're like, well, it's about words, but it's about this specific type of philosophy. It's like, oh, philosophy, so it's about all of philosophy. It's like, no, it's about this particular philosophy. And it's like, oh, so it's about a certain sector of philosophy. It's like, yes, but it's trying to talk about deconstruction and this kind of thing. Like you have to keep limiting down and defining down something in its opposition to other things. You have to keep suppressing meanings in order to actually understand what the message that you're trying to get across, like
Right.
what these words are meaning.
Yeah.
So there's a plurality, there's not a duality, and that the duality is really just a plurality in another sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I can concede to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think instead of drilling down, I think philosophy is trying to drill out. I think, like, if you read any papers on philosophy, at least a lot of them, I don't know what kind of papers you read, but what they do is they don't even, the first few paragraphs don't even talk about the topic. Like if it's talking about like capital punishment or whatever, it doesn't even start talking about it right off the bat. It goes through several paragraphs of just defining terms and talking about other small philosophies to build up to either justifying capital punishment or saying capital punishment is bad, right? Like I think, yeah, we can drill down and we can drill up, and they're both pluralities, they're not binary. But I think philosophy is drilling up. We start with like just your basic, just declaring that statements are true, then deriving other kind of like logical concepts, and then deriving these basic concepts like prison and capital punishment and stuff like that, and then deriving some stuff on top of that. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
Well, I mean, you're trying to get down to a certain point. I mean, you could say it's kind of paradoxical in that kind of statement, where it's like, okay, should we send this person to jail or not to jail? You have a very binary decision that you've created. You know, it's like you could say, okay, we're gonna put him in jail, or we're gonna put him into community service, or we're gonna just let him go. So now there's three different options. So you can kind of create whatever you want. I mean, you know, without getting into another kind of thing, basically like it's infinite. Like you can go infinite many different directions with anything if you really want to. It's just like where does that at the end of the day where does that lead you? You know? Like to me it's like I don't know what you really get out of all this philosophy and all this quantitative type of analysis and doing this kind of stuff.
Well, you
If
don't get anything. You don't get anything. I told you
yeah, I
that.
mean
That
you don't get really
has no
anything
application.
because
I
so I
still
mean
believe that strongly. It has no application.
yeah, I mean it's fun sometimes, but I mean like if you're asking for an answer, it's like okay, here you go, like study this, you know.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I told you earlier, I don't think there's an answer to anything. Chaos theory, spurious correlation, butterfly effect. clearly stipulates there is no answer to anything. Nothing has any value. Only the value that you and I agree upon. That's the only value that there is. Other than that, nothing has any answer.
I mean, if you think that the only way to reach truth is through the mind and through rationalism and logic, then you'd be right. But I would explore other domains. And you'd be surprised.
Give me one other domain. One domain, and I will research that one. Just one phrase, please.
Yoga.
Truth and value. No,
I would go Kriya Yoga.
Do yoga. No. Give me another one.
That's okay. I mean, like that's what I'm saying though. You're not gonna accept to do an exercise if it's not fitting the current paradigm.
Okay. So yoga. All right. You want me to like sit and do what?
Practice Kriya Yoga.
Practice what?
Kriya Yoga. It's the yoga that was more so popularized by Swami Yogananda. He has his temple of self-actualization down in Encinitas.
Do I need any tools, or do I have everything I need?
You can look up a book. I can give you like a book on like
Kriya
yoga.
Wait, do I need to read a book to figure out how to do this particular type of yoga?
I mean, to know what the practices are, yeah. But I mean, or you could probably find it somewhere on YouTube, somewhere. I don't know. But doing an actual practice, like actually sitting down and doing like a breath work exercise. Breath work would be a pretty good starting point, I think, if you haven't practiced that.
You don't even know what's going on in my brain. Like right now, I'm trying to rack like what in God's name does breathing exercises have to do with discovering the truth? I'm trying so hard.
You got to do it, and you have to figure out, because it'll give
my
you
analytical brain is not.
It'll give you the perspective. Here's what it'll do. If you do breath work and you do like hyperventilation, that kind of practice, leaning more towards like the more intense side, not just like, oh, I'm breathing for like relaxation. Do like the intense stuff, like tribal drums and like breathing hard type stuff.
Drums?
Like, yeah, I mean, usually there's like tribal drums they use. I don't know. It helps me when I practice it to have tribal drums in the background. Some people like more airy flute sounds. I don't know why, but whatever. But yeah, if you do that kind of stuff, it will override your logical mind, and it'll get you in touch with your body. It'll get you in touch with other parts of your being, and it will give you more perspective. You have to make sure that you keep that in mind when you try to do your inquiries into reality. It just opens the door, pretty much. But you have to actually do it. You can't think about doing it. You have to actually do it.
I'm thinking about doing it right now. It's giving me a stomach ache.
Thing is, it's free. It's simple. It's not like crazy or anything like that. You know, it's not like a psychedelic or anything. It's like you just do it. It's really therapeutic. Like it really is. Like if you got like a lot of like emotional trauma.
I'm not doing it for therapy. I don't need any therapy. I'm doing it to discover the truth.
I know, but it has an added benefit of being therapeutic. So, you know, why not?
Okay. And if I don't discover the truth?
Well, no, you're not going to discover the truth doing that. You're going to be open to. It's a long process, man. I didn't get to like all these kinds of understandings and realizations just because I was breathing really hard one day, you know? But yeah, I mean, it'll definitely open your eyes, I guess, you know, not to, you know, put it that broadly, but it'll get you to kind of see a different side and be like, oh, okay, I see what he's talking about. There's another like thing, you know, you're going to look behind you, so to speak, and you're going to be like, oh, there's some stuff over there. okay, I see what he's talking about. But are you gonna like, put your freaking car into reverse and, mash the gas pedal and get to the place where I'm talking about? No, no, I just don't think so. Are you gonna whip a bitch and freaking get all the way to the other end of the earth? Nah, that's just not gonna happen. But you're gonna look behind you, you're gonna see what I'm talking about, that there's another direction.
So you disagree with my view of the world, chaos theory based, butterfly effect, stuff like that?
I don't think it can explain the world. Like, and I think that kind of
Well, it
that kind of
explains the world by saying that the world can't be explained.
well, I just don't think that it reaches like the truth that you're really seeking, because you're very persistent, and that's very awesome. I really appreciate that
No, I am.
about you, and I just don't think that you're going to be satisfied with that. For most people that want to live their life more practically, they just kind of like want to wake up, they want to watch the NFL, they want to, go to the beach, they want to do their job. I just don't think that's you're just not that type of person, you know. And so if you're seeking that kind of truth, then yeah, go down this route. I think it's definitely better for you. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not like an omniscient being, but uh, if you look at the people who really kind of go down the rational, logical route, I just they're I just don't really feel like they're really that happy with their lives, and they really talk very robotically, and it feels very weird. Like when you look at some of those people, I mean, I'm not gonna name any names, but like I guess I could do it, outside of this video. Um, yeah,
People
it's
you and
I
I
just
know.
don't wish that for you.
Who are you talking about?
I don't know. I don't really want to name names like that.
But people you and I both know.
They're just like kind of like bigger names out there, just like intellectual types that everybody kind of talks about.
How about like Steve Jobs?
Well, Steve Jobs is not really a great example of that. He's more so a marketer. He had a lot of soul to him, but I think he kind of sold out a little bit to just marketing his products and kind of making it big. But I don't know. I guess I'll give you like there's a certain person that has a type of demeanor to him. I'll have to look him up because I forget like his actual name, but he has he talks to those likes of people that are like Eric Weinstein types of people, but he has I'll have to find it. I forget his name. He has his own channel though. He's from like MIT, and he looks a lot into what's it, machine learning, stuff like that. Like a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just so robotic. Like I just don't see him laughing. I don't see like whatever. I can see like his soul behind everything that he's doing, and I can see who he is. But it's just like I always wonder. I'm like, if this person took a bunch of psychedelics, went to Burning Man, just got in touch with that human side, well, how would he be? Like how would he be different? Rather than him looking at all this computational analysis. You know, that's really what he's all about. Like he's really, really into that kind of shit. Like I think he had like the one guy that developed Wolfram, which is a computational language.
Yeah,
Which
I know.
yeah, yeah. I think that stuff is quite fascinating. But yeah, I mean he interviewed that kind of dude and all that kind of stuff, and just seeing his love for it, it's like that's cool. But like I don't know, just missing soul for me. Not to say anything bad about him.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I'll do this yoga thing, but I will highly consider it.
I think do the breathwork thing because that's like very simple. I'll send you like a link to like the instructions on how to do that. And you can do that tonight and you can just like get right into it. Because you need something that's going to override your logical mind. Because you do. Like, I mean, I needed it. I feel like you need it. I feel like we all kind of need it these days. So
Pursuit is logical. I just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I want to know how chaos theory is off. I'd like to know.
well, I mean, it's just kind of it's just kind of like looking at one thing. Like it's a useful concept for certain things, but when you're trying to like, you know, get to the truth of reality, like you're not going to break your paradigm of naive realism using chaos theory. Just not really going to happen.
Well, I don't know. All right, I have to go, man. I'm
Yeah.
starving. I think that all this is on YouTube too, so that's great. Yay, yay,
Yeah.
yay.
Yeah. Well, no, it's been good talking with you. Good debate.
Yeah, no, not a debate. I hope you understand the way better now, because I'm trying to understand the way you think, and man, it's on another level. I thought that there was a small chance that you were just like way below me intellect wise, and you were just spouting some nonsense. I think you might have just an incredibly high intellect. I think there was a good chance of that. Probably.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I try to avoid saying anything, especially about myself having a high intellect. I just know that a lot of people I run into tell me that. Um, and upon my own investigation of like what intelligence is, I don't think you can boil it down to an IQ test. I don't think you can boil it down to really
I'm
much
not
of
saying
anything.
that.
I know that I'm not saying anything about you. I'm just kind of spouting my own thing. I feel that intelligence is an irreducible phenomenon. And so uh, having a lot of it, having little of it, having whatever, I think it's so hard to kind of just say this is what intelligence is. Because as soon as you say that, it's like it's like when people try to like define like the post or neo-Advaitin kind of terminology of what God is. It's like once you put it into a box, then basically you can't like that's wrong, you know? Like it is how everybody defines like, the new age kind of God that they're defining it as is that it is the universe. It is full pantheism. It is like God is literally the universe and it is literally everything. It is infinite. And so as soon as you put a finite definition to it, it is not that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm gonna swallow all this and we'll see what happens. Next time you throw on something though, I'll probably stay quiet, but just know that I disagree with almost everything. But here's the other thing: I disagree with most of everything that anyone says because I don't think anything can ever be said for certain. So now you know.
Yeah.
We'll see if that changes. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it too, man. Definitely throw your opinions in there. They're definitely
No,
appreciated.
I'm not going to because I know you'll know that in the back of your head, like Kevin totally disagrees with all this because you can't say any of this shit if you're thinking about chaos theory because nothing means nothing and there's no value. But that is kind of a depressing way to live, a little bit. I've never thought of it that way. It's a little depressing.
Well, I mean, true nihilism, I mean, if you go all the way through, it, it is pretty helpful, I think.
Nihilists don't kill themselves, right? That's like a misconception that they like it's convenient to live. Like it's kind of inconvenient to kill yourself, right? So like there is still like concepts like that even in nihilism like nihilists exist today, right? Like self-proclaimed. I guarantee you, if I go on LinkedIn or Facebook, or whatever, and search nihilists, I'm sure I could find some self-proclaimed nihilists
Yeah.
who are still alive right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
Yeah.
that
And of course, atheism and nihilism kind of go together a little bit. Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know. There's plenty of cases where like I remember I went to it was a UCI event. It was archaeology in a post-truth world. So it was a bunch of like archaeologists and philosophers. It was actually started by this one girl, Darby, who was a philosophy professor at UCI. And I remember I was talking to one of the guys that actually did a lot of research into um, archaeology of like Native American and like Nahua tribes and all those kinds of like older things of the Americas. And I started talking to him about like the non-duality perspectives of the spiritual practices of the Nahua natives and like a lot of the old like Mexican kind of traditions. And he was like, I don't really see, how that actually kind of goes in there because I didn't really see that kind of thing. And I pointed to like a research kind of to his thing. And he's like, well, I kind of have a bias. Like I'm very um, um, atheistic and kind of like nihilistic. And so I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I got you, but I mean, non-duality, I guess if you, come at it from that kind of lens, if you learn about it and then you kind of see this report and then you kind of look at all the different type of things, you can kind of come to that kind of realization. I didn't really get into like much of a dialogue with him or much of anything that I could really kind of give to you, but just to kind of show like there is so much out there that I feel like a lot of this stuff, because of academia, we put them into different pieces where I kind of talked about, some things of psychology that kind of bleed off when I talked about integral theory and, things that done work by Ken Wilber and talked about, spiral dynamics, talked about, other things with psychology and how it relates to spiritual growth and philosophy. Everybody's like, oh, those are three different pieces. It's three different camps. We don't talk about that. And I'm like, but they all connect together. You know what I mean? Like, that's like if we're trying to, figure something out to help humanity, we have to take this multidisciplinary approach. And like the whole theme of the entire event was like, we're going to take a multidisciplinary approach to kind of figuring out how to, find truth in this post-truth world they were, proclaiming. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration that I feel out there when I go out and I'm trying to do stuff. So I guess that's kind of like part of why I'm doing this whole channel thing. So
All right, I gotta go, man.
yeah, go eat, man. Don't get me on another rant. Don't say anything else.
I want to. There's another
Yeah.
There's another comment that I want to make. I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
All right.
Just go do the breath work and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
All right. But you know that if I go do it and I don't get any results, I'm gonna be like, this is some nonsense.
I mean, I will send you a video of instructions. This guy who will go through like how to do it. You have to actually do it. And there's a certain point like you can do it for like, 15 minutes or whatever, just to like get your feet wet with the exercise. But if you want to call bullshit on me, do the entire exercise, do it for 1 hour. And if it doesn't do shit for you, then you are not human. That's my claim.
Okay.
If you actually do it, you have to actually do it. Like, because you can do it half-assed. You could be like short breaths. It's like, no, not short breaths, deep breaths.
Psychopaths exist, right? You know, like people like that exist.
I know there's people like that exist, but you don't really take me as like the psychopath type. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm a psychopath. I have feelings. Like I care about things.
Yeah.
All right, dude, I have to go. I have to go. All right.
Hey, go eat, man. I'm not stopping you.
All right. Bye, man.
All right. See you, dude. And we are done.